2 o'clock on a Friday, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube at Mike Gill Show. What's up, everybody? We are live. It's a happy hour Friday, the last happy hour Friday for me for the year, so we'll have a little fun today as we get you out of here on a Friday afternoon, getting you ready for the Eagles and the Commanders. It's all happening this Sunday, 1 o'clock. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. The coverage starts at noon. You know, so much talk nationally, the pursuit of history for Saquon Barkley. Is that the biggest message of this game this week? Is Saquon Barkley's pursuit for Eric Dickerson's record? Obviously, the Eagles have bigger fish to fry. If the Eagles win the game, they will win the NFC East, and that really changes the dynamics of a lot of things. It can be no worse than the 2 seed. They now get their goals towards the 1 seed. If the Eagles win this week, they put the pressure on everybody. They put the pressure on Detroit, Minnesota, to continue to try to have to play these games with a lot of meaning. And one thing is the battle of attrition. It's one reason why Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles cannot be concerned with this record. While it's great, why it's nice, why it's something that's like, man, that would be really cool if he was able to do this, you simply cannot be concerned about this record because of what's happening around you. You look at the Detroit Lions. Why have we changed our opinion of them? They have fallen apart. They're broken down. And if Philadelphia is able to keep winning and put the pressure on them, who knows what happens? The battle of attrition is a real thing. And listen, today at practice, A.J. Brown was at practice. But there are a lot of people keeping their eyes on him. He showed up on the injury report last night with a knee rest situation. Now, you know, everybody this time of the year is banged up, beaten up. And if the Eagles continue to put the pressure on teams, they have to keep playing. They can't rest players. Now, you would say neither can the Eagles, but this is the whole game here. Who can make it to the finish line the healthiest? And if Philadelphia keeps the pressure on them, they have to keep playing. And who knows, who can win the battle of attrition might be the team that ends up in New Orleans. So what kind of impact are we looking at from this Washington game this week? You have 2 teams both playing for big things here. Washington, they need this game. Washington needs this game almost as much, if not more, than Philadelphia. Now, Philadelphia is playing for bigger fish, I think. Washington, I don't know that we look at them as a true Super Bowl contender, but Washington is playing to make the playoffs for the first time in, like, who remembers, right? The Washington Commanders are just a team that is trying to change the perception of who they are. Getting to the playoffs for them is a big deal. They are 9-5. The Rams are in first place in the West right now after, 14 weeks, 15 weeks of the season. Seattle is tied with them. So both the Rams and Seattle are putting the pressure on Washington to try to capture that last playoff spot. So you have 3 teams really for 1 spot. The loser of the West division will be a wild card opponent, and Washington in there as well. But Washington really, if they lose this game, you think about if Washington loses this game, all the doubt that starts to trickle in, and then next week you have Atlanta, who's kind of still in the playoff mix as well, and then you finish the season at Dallas. And, of course, Dallas would love to do nothing more than knock Washington out. You know, we always think so much of the Eagles-Cowboys here. You know, there was a time where the Washington-Dallas rivalry was one of the biggest and best in all of football. You know, I went to college with a guy who was from Manassas, Virginia, and he was a big Redskins fan at the time. And, you know, it was a huge deal. It almost got you fired. You could go 14-2, but if you lost to Dallas and you were the Washington coach, you know, there was some talk whether or not you were the right coach. It's almost like Ryan Day can't beat Michigan. He wins every other game, but he can't beat Michigan, so he might get fired. That's what that rivalry used to be. Washington, that rivalry has gone out the window for the most part, and any rivalry with Washington has almost gone out the window. They just haven't been good enough to be part of a rivalry. Well, now they are back, and it's a big game for them. If they win this game, they keep that hold on the number 7 seed in the NFC. If they lose that game, man, there's a good chance that they don't make the playoffs because the two teams in the West are coming for them. So what are some of the matchups in this game? Let's take a look at them. Let's take a look at some of the things that we're paying attention to on this Friday afternoon. 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. Don't forget, you can watch the show on your smart TV through the YouTube app. You can watch the show on the X platform and on Instagram at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel to watch. Download the free mobile app on your phone, powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City, and you can listen to the Sports Bash wherever you may roam. Metallica reference on a Friday. All right, so you got this matchup here. Number one thing about this lineup, this matchup, the lineups that you're looking for in this one. You know, the Eagles' pass game last week was the story, right? You come out and say, what was the story of last week? The story of last week was the Eagles put the passing game, detractors to rest for at least a week. Do they try to appease them again and show again that they could do against Washington what they did against the Steelers? 290 yards for Jalen Hurts, a couple touchdowns. That'll do you really good. A.J. Brown got targeted 11 times. He had 8 catches for 110 yards. And then his buddy on the other side, Devontae Smith, he had a big game too. So is this a pass game? Is this a run game? Interesting. We'll find out. I wonder if the Eagles, if you are somebody who believes, Rothstein and I got into a little matchup on Wednesday's show, right? He was calling Nick Sirianni too emotional, that he, got emotional in that he called pass plays instead of doing what got them here, run the football, and said that's being emotional. What are you looking at me like that for?
That's what he was saying?
Yeah, he felt that Sirianni allowed the emotion of all the drama to get away what the team has been successful with all season long. Run the ball. Why are you getting away from running the ball? That's who you've been. That's who you are. Why are you appeasing the fans?
Well, first of all, it wasn't appeasing the fans. He was taking advantage of the Steelers' defense that's horrible against the pass.
Well, I mean, I know that. You say that, but that was his take. I'm not going to criticize him for his take.
I'll criticize him for it. I'll be the bad guy.
Yeah, I mean, I told him I don't agree with you. I think Sirianni, by the way, I said, ironically enough, Sirianni doesn't call the plays,
right,
but he could be the guy to blame if you want to go to the head coach. That being said, does he, if that's your take, that you think that they appease the fans by passing the football, which way do you appease the fans this week? Is it by throwing the football again and saying, see, we could do it again? Or are you appeasing the fans by allowing Saquon Barkley to approach that record?
I don't know if either one is a legitimate appeasement because of the fact that I think a lot of Eagle fans just have such good vibes this week that nobody's complaining, basically. So there's nothing to appease in terms of complaints. But I will say that I personally anticipate more Saquon Barkley this week because the Washington Commanders, as they are called at this moment in time, is a team that has been horrible against the run the entire year, Mike. They are bottom of the NFL in rushing yards allowed and rushing yards allowed per carry.
Well, they've been better the last couple of weeks, as we chronicled yesterday with Casey Joyner. He talked about the fact that they have been a little bit better against the run. When Philadelphia throws, A.J. Brown and Jalen Hurts, they're number one in the NFL in yards per attempt. 12.1 yards per attempt every time you throw the ball to A.J. Brown. That's a big number there. Now, the one storyline in this one as well. First time they played, Terry McLaurin, he was a big story entering the game. Eagles completely shut him down. They got targeted a season low 2 times in the game.
Yep.
1 catch, 10 yards. Philadelphia absolutely took him out. They bracketed him all day long, and he just could not find a way open. You look at the last 3 games. Now, in the game against Philadelphia, according to ESPN stats and information, McLaurin ran 22 of his 25 routes from the left side of the field in game 1. Since then, 40 or more routes have been from the left side, 22 on the right. So of the 62 routes he's running, he's been moving around as opposed to just getting stuck up against potentially Quinyon Mitchell.
Right, so you're saying that there's a possibility that it won't just be Mitchell on McLaurin, that McLaurin could get flipped to the other side of the field against Slay.
Well, when we take a look at what's different about them this time to that time, he seems pretty stationary on the left side of the field. Now they're moving him around a little bit. So when you bracket him, with zone coverage on the left side of the field, well, you got Quinyon Mitchell, you got C.J. Gardner-Johnson. Maybe you don't want to throw that way, and maybe you're more willing to take some chances if he's on the other side of the field. Who knows? But it's something just I thought was kind of interesting looking at some of the matchups for this game. You also take a look at the one thing is Philadelphia's offensive line in this game. Huge factor. It is always a factor, but the big factor for them is I think it was interesting as people were pointing out this morning. When you talk about Saquon Barkley, right, and him getting this record, the Eagles' offensive line also wants to be a part of that record.
Sure.
And getting them to be a part of this game and utilizing them to their full advantage is saying, hey, let's get the offensive line involved in this game and have them help pave the way. Because to get this record, you're going to have approach a 200-yard game. Somewhere along this line, you're going to have to get 180, 190, almost 200 yards in a game. And this would be the one that you have to do it.
Right. The idea being because you're going against a not good run defense in Washington, and typically you do like to run the ball on the road because of those, away environments, then yes, it does add up to this being a running game today.
Well, listen,
on Sunday, I should say.
I think the Philadelphia Eagles can throw the ball in this game if they want to. I think they can run the ball in this game if they want to. And quite frankly, Washington, yeah, it's a solid team. I don't think they're just a complete nothing burger. They're definitely improved. But this is the kind of team you impose your will on. This is the kind of game similar to the game you watched the other night when you say Green Bay's playing Seattle and you see the difference between a team that can go to the Super Bowl and a team that's just a playoff team, just a wild card team. There's a different level, and you saw it in that Monday night game when Green Bay played Seattle. You just said the level of these two teams is just – they're not the same. They're not the same level of team. Green Bay's just better. I think this is the kind of game where – when you watch this game at this stage of the season, you better hope that Philadelphia is just better. They just look better. They just impose more. They just can do more. They just have more confidence. They just feel like this is our game. I don't care if we're on your field, our field, Mars, Brazil. We are the better team here. That's where you want to get at this stage of the season when you're playing for big goals. It would be very disappointing to see them by the way, it would be very disappointing if they lost this game. Number one, it wouldn't knock their season apart. It wouldn't kill them. It wouldn't prevent them from winning the Super Bowl. It'll certainly add doubt and enter doubt into your mind that, oh, my gosh, you lost to the Commanders. Keep in mind the Commanders do have a lot to play for here, and they're not a pushover. Their defensive front ranks 24th in run-stop win rate. So they're not good up front. This is a team you should be able to manhandle up front. The offensive line for Philadelphia ranks 9th in run block win rate. So there's a big mismatch up front. Washington also gives up the 6th most rushing yards per game to running backs. They give up 5 yards per carry. So this is the kind of game that Saquon Barkley, and we talked about it yesterday, he has more more scrimmage yards against Washington than any other team he's ever played against. And I know they were all done in New York. If you're getting those kind of yards in New York against this team, how many yards can you get against this team with Philadelphia blocking for you?
That, and also the fact that, what gets overlooked in this matchup is that Washington, Mike, also has the 9th highest blitz percentage in the NFL. So if you're running the ball more than you're passing, you're taking away their opportunities to get after the quarterback and disrupt your offense. So if you're leaning on the run game, you get that play action involved, right? You maybe get that quick, 3-step drop, get the ball out of Hurts's hands to the slant to A.J. Brown. You have to customize your game plan to take advantage of where Washington is weakest.
So where do you think there's an impact in this game? What's an impact in this game that maybe has been swept under the rug?
I would say number one is the Marshawn Lattimore conversation.
He did not play the first time, by the way.
At all.
Remember, they traded for Lattimore and missed the first 3 or 4 weeks that he got traded.
He missed the first 3 weeks, yeah, because he was banged up in New Orleans before they traded for him.
Mm-hmm.
He has come on, and I think that him on the back end is an interesting conversation because is Lattimore good enough to cut off a side of the field for the Eagles' passing game?
I would say no. I don't think anybody is, quite frankly. I mean, to cut off a side, even if he does, then you got to figure out what to do on the other side.
Right.
So, yeah, maybe even if I said, okay, he's Revis Island, he cut off the whole side, what are you going to do on the other side?
True.
I don't think they have an answer on the other side.
I will say that Sanderson has been playing a lot better the last few weeks. He has shown a lot of good instincts in the secondary, so I almost wonder if some of the stats we have seen on the year, Mike, and then you compare them to the last 3 weeks, you're seeing that Washington, especially the last 2 games, they have tightened up. But here's the question. They're tightening up against not as good teams the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
So is that a Fugazi situation where, hey, you played good defensively against the Saints, but the Saints don't have Derek Carr as their quarterback?
Yeah, I listen, when you play Philadelphia, you're going up a notch from playing, from playing New Orleans.
Oh, it's more than a notch.
Yeah. 609-403-0973. If you're watching, let us know. 609-403-0973. Tell us where you are, where you're watching, what you're on today. A couple things here. Let's go to A.J. Brown is at his locker room moments ago on whether or not he will play in the game on Sunday. Here's A.J. Brown.
Tierney, how are you? What's going on?
I'm playing.
All right, there you go. He laughed. He could not contain himself. He could not hold it in. And he flashed a big A.J. Brown smile and simply said, I'm playing. He sounded like he is not 100%, as he went on to say in that bite. He said nobody is this time of the year, but he did smile and say, I'm playing. So it shows you the importance of this game for Philadelphia. You know, maybe if this is week 5 and they're playing this game, then he might not play in the game and just rest it out and get himself back and ready and healthy. But the Eagles know they have bigger fish to fry. If he can get out there, this is almost like what Kansas City's doing right now. Even though they're the 1 seed, they know that they're not locked into the 1 seed. If he can get out on that field, Patrick Mahomes is going to play until they have that 1 seed wrapped up. As soon as that 1 seed's wrapped up, I think Mahomes is probably out.
And similar to A.J. Brown, Mahomes, both men have been LPs this week at practice. They have been limited participants at most practices, but they've been on the field, they've been going through the reps, they've been doing the work, so it's not like they're not practicing at all. And I think that's the key this time of year, Mike, is that the fact that is the guy on the field or not? If the guy's on the field doing work, you're much more likely to see him on game day.
609-403-0973. Give me one more thing you're looking at in this game. Everybody out there, what are you watching in this game? What's the big storyline for Sunday? Eagles, Commanders. You know, the one thing, I've hosted this show. There was a guy yesterday, I believe his name was it Dave, that came out and saw us at Chickies and Pete's. And he said he's been listening since the beginning, and I appreciate that. And he said something that was kind of interesting when you think about this, about how long I've been doing the show. He said, you know, you're going on 20 years. I think I started in 2005, right after the Eagles lost the Super Bowl to the Patriots. So I didn't even realize that. He brought it up to me that I've been doing this for 20 years. What is wrong with me? That said, the one thing in 20 years of doing this show that has really never happened, no juice behind a Washington-Philadelphia game. The rivalry has just not been there. The NFC East has these great rivalries, and Philadelphia-Washington just has not gotten there in my entire tenure. Really, think about it.
I mean, really, the last time I could think of when a Washington game had any I don't know, relevancy, substance. I mean, you got to go back 20 years at this point.
When you're talking about these two teams playing, no, listen, the division is on the line per se. Washington wins. Philly can't win the division yet, but Washington would have to win out. Philly would have to lose out. So it's not quite there yet. But if Washington wins this game, it does set up that these two teams might now, because think about this. McMullen brought it up yesterday. Philadelphia's going to win the division.
Right.
It will be 20 straight years that the same team has not won back-to-back divisions titles in the NFC East. It'll be the 20th straight year that a different team won the NFC East. If Washington wins this game, you go into next year thinking what? Can Washington take down Philadelphia to be the team that wins the NFC East that did not win last year? Can Philly win back-to-back NFC East championships? Or is Washington the team starting this year with a game on Sunday, December 22nd, that flips the script? 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973.
One more subject for you, Mike, to talk about is we did not see a healthy Jaden Daniels the first time these teams played. He has played much better the last 3 games. He has a 75% completion percentage, 7 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing, and a quarterback rating of 105.9. So now you're going to see a better version of Jaden Daniels than the first matchup.
All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. There's a couple takes for you there. Lattimore did not play the first game. Daniels banged up the first game. Could those two things be enough to change the dynamics of this matchup Sunday on 97.3 ESPN? Let us know, 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973. It is the holiday season, everybody. We got you covered till 6 tonight right here on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, and on Instagram at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe, like, share, and watch the show. This hour of the show is brought to you by Autumn Lake Healthcare Centers, skilled nursing rehab with elite-level care in warm and vibrant atmosphere. Visit autumnlakehealthcare.com and find a location near you. Flyers lose last night. They were tied. I got to stop flipping off the game. The game is tied. I flip and I come back and they're down. This is like the second night in a row this has happened. They lost 7-3 last night. Rough game. Late in the game, they pulled the goalie with like 5 minutes left in that game, then gave up an empty netter. It just got out of hand. They lost 7-3 to the Kings. Will Joel Embiid play tonight? We're going to be keeping our eye on that because Andre Drummond had some interesting things to say yesterday. And the Phillies made a signing, an outfielder. We'll get the details coming up next on the Sports Bash. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City and PressOfAC.com joins me as he does every Happy Hour Friday on the Sports Bash. All right, 229 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, joins me on a happy hour Friday, getting you ready for the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Washington Commanders. Eagles about a 3.5-point favorite, 45.5 over-under. Eagles beat Washington 26-18 in Week 11. Commanders, it feels like they've been a pain in the butt for Philadelphia, but the Eagles are 6-1 versus the Commanders in their last 7 meetings. The one loss was that one game where Philadelphia went to the Super Bowl that year. So Philly's kind of dominated it, even though it doesn't feel like it. But will this be a similar outcome on Sunday? Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City is here. We look at the NFC East and everything happening. Philly's made a signing. We'll get into all that. The Sixers, will they get Joel Embiid back? But, Mike, this is a big game for Washington for playoffs, but it's equally a big game for Philly with the number 1 seed still on the line. Should they be playing this game this week with that in mind?
Absolutely. I think this game on Sunday is the difference between 15-2 and 14-3. And I think you're right. The Commanders are fighting for a playoff spot themselves. And let's remember, Mike, that when Washington came up here to Philadelphia a couple of weeks ago, they led that game 10-3 in the third quarter before Saquon Barkley went berserk and kind of carried the Eagles to the 26-18 win. So a play here or a play there, and maybe that game goes in a different direction. I think this could be a tough spot for the Eagles. And the other thing to remember is when the Eagles first played Washington, Jaden Daniels was kind of in a sort of mid-season rookie swoon there. He's come out of it the last 2 weeks with impressive performances against Tennessee and New Orleans. So I think this is a tough spot for the Eagles.
What's more appeasing this week if you're the Eagles? Show the fans I could throw the ball again, or let Barkley approach 200-yard type of game and go after that record?
Look, I think right now the biggest thing is to win. We're beyond, appeasing people's egos and stuff like that. I think you have to, winning is obviously the most important thing. And I think, again, I am a fan of old-time football. We've talked about kicking field goals here, kicking extra points, going for 2. I'm a fan of running the football and playing defense in December. That's how you win. So if it was up to me, I'd make sure Saquon Barkley got the ball 25 times on Sunday, and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith can get it, when they're open. But I'm making a priority to get Barkley that football.
Well, and you just said, what old school football that used to win, the Eagles have that formula, right? They can run, they play defense.
Absolutely.
Right? They can dial that up almost whenever they want to. That's the interesting part about the dynamics here. Fans have been for years, run the ball. Now they run the ball, and it's almost like, well, now you're running too much.
Yeah, exactly. They run the football, and they're like, why aren't you throwing it more? To me, run the football and complement that with timely passing, big plays to the wide receivers. And that doesn't mean we're asking Jalen Hurts to be a game manager. We're asking him to make those plays in key spots with both his legs and his arm that make the difference in the game. But you're paying Barkley $14 million a year. It's cold. It's rainy out. It's the Northeast. This is how you win, especially in the NFC. You run the football and play defense, and then you make big plays in the passing game. The Eagles have all 3 of those ingredients.
The odd part is you probably want to face Washington in the playoffs over either Seattle or the Rams, no?
I don't know about that. I mean, the one team that maybe I would want to stay away from is the Rams. First of all, if I was the Eagles, I wouldn't fear any one of those 3 teams. But if you made me choose, who do I want to play, I would stay away from the Rams. Obviously, they've got a great coach. They've got an experienced quarterback. They've got talented wide receivers. But the Eagles have handled them in the regular season. You look at Seattle, what's the status of Geno Smith? He went down injured. They haven't been overly impressive this year. I think I would rather play one of those 2 teams than seeing Washington for a third time. Jaden Daniels kind of worries me, Mike, in the fact that I think he's very close to having one of those Jaden Daniel games where he does a couple of kind of head-shaking things, which pulls out an unexpected victory.
Well,
so of those 3 teams, I would want to see Washington again. I think they match up well against Los Angeles, and Seattle doesn't scare me at all, especially with a banged-up Geno Smith.
Mike, it's interesting. Before you came on, I've been doing this way too long, 20 years, and I don't remember a big Eagles-Washington game. Like, that rivalry has just been nothing, and a lot of it's because of Washington. But if Washington wins this game, they're probably not going to win the division, but there has not been a repeat winner in the NFC East in now going on 20 years. It's going to add fuel to this rivalry to say Washington beat them late in the year, and then next year will be the year Washington gets the division because we don't have a repeat winner.
Yeah, right now, if you're going to look at the two teams in the NFC East who are going to emerge going forward, especially with the age of the quarterbacks, right, it just sets up naturally. Washington is that team to sort of challenge the Eagles' superiority. I know this division has not had a repeat winner, but let's face facts. The Eagles have been the team in the division. They've had a down year but they won the Super Bowl in 2017. They went to the Super Bowl in 2022. The Eagles might not have the division titles to prove it, but the Eagles have been the number one team in this division for the past 10 years, and they've been at the top of this division since, Andy Reid first came to town. So I agree with you that it could be setting up for Washington to become the challenger to the Eagles' throne right there, especially when you look at the age of the quarterbacks, in Daniels and Hurts. It's shaping up to be a long rivalry, and 2 games a year you kind of circle the calendar for.
All right, Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City. We got Eagles Commanders on the horizon. Phillies made an addition this last night. They brought in outfielder Max Kepler, 1 year, $10 million, a left-handed hitting right fielder. Make this one make sense.
Yeah, I think they're taking a chance here, right? I mean, you're bringing in a guy. First of all, the fact that you're bringing in a left-handed guy kind of perplexes me, right? Because now you're saying if you're going to play him in left field, now you're putting Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas in center field probably as a platoon, right? So you're putting Kepler in there. To me, Mike, this kind of reminds me of an Austin Hayes move that they tried to make at the deadline. Very similar type of player, except he's left-handed and Hayes was right-handed. You've got Kepler, a guy who hit 24 home runs in 2023, but last year hit only 8. He was banged up with injuries. His best season was in 2019 where he hit 36 home runs, drove in 90 runs. At one point, the Twins thought he was going to be an emerging star. It didn't turn out that way. You're kind of, I think, here trying to capture lightning in the bottom. And what it kind of says to me, the Phillies have a tremendously high payroll. They're up against that third luxury tax of $301 million, which carries a lot of penalties for it. Loss of draft picks, I believe, loss of international signing money. They don't want to go over that limit. And they have a lot of expensive players on the field, and you can't have a guy making $300 million at every position. So sometimes you have to take a gamble on a guy like Max Kepler and Austin Hayes and hope you catch lightning in a bottle. It didn't work with Austin Hayes during this past season. Maybe it'll work with Max Kepler, but I agree with you. Nobody was storming the Phillies season ticket office today to get season tickets after they heard that Max Kepler was in the fold.
No, and, I've seen some even suggest that they play him in right field and move Castellanos to left field, which would be interesting.
He is a better right fielder than he is a left fielder. I don't think he's played an inning in his career in left field, but you're not going to take Castellanos out of right field, especially and switch him to left. That is not going to happen, especially with Castellanos. He's become a better right fielder. He's played there, for 2 or 3 seasons. You're not going to move Castellanos from right to left, even though Kepler has never played an inning of left field in his career.
All right, Mike McGarry for the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com. Any thoughts on like an Anthony Santander, Teoscar Hernandez, who's probably – neither one of them seem realistic, but their names have been thrown around a little bit. Do either one of those excite us?
Yeah, I like those guys, especially Teoscar Hernandez. I love him, but, Mike, the question is, can you fit them in the payroll, basically? And I don't think you can fit either one of those guys and stay under that tax of $301 million. So I think it's the key. Look, I think what is – the key here is you have a guy making $300 million at first base. You have a guy making $300 million at shortstop. You have a guy making $20 million in right field. Kyle Schwarber makes $19 million. Zach Wheeler makes over $20. Aaron Nola makes over $20. This is not a team without superstars. And Dave Dombrowski said it early in the season. He said, we don't need any more superstars. What they need is maybe some role players to come in and kind of buy a lottery ticket. Like Max Kepler is like buying a scratch-off lottery ticket at your local Wawa, right? You hope you scratch it off and you win $100, and you hope it's not a dud. That's basically what you're doing with Max Kepler right there. That's what the Phillies are going to need. They're going to need their current stars to produce and their younger players, Bryson Stott, Marsh, Bohm, to continue to improve. I know the fans are disappointed, but I really believe the Phillies are kind of hamstrung by their payroll right now. But it's not like they're cheap. Their payroll is it's in the top 5 in baseball, basically.
All right, Mike, let's flip over to the Sixers. Joel Embiid, questionable for the game tonight. I don't know. I mean, I feel like this team has been so snake-bitten. The season almost feels lost. Jared McCain has, had surgery. He's going to be out indefinitely. Embiid then gets hit in the face. Is this a lost season? Are we chalking it up? Because I asked this question as the Christmas holiday gets here. They play on Christmas night against Boston. Many in the NBA world will say that is the start of the NBA season. Can the Sixers start the season Christmas and revive this seemingly lost season with a healthy asterisk, Embiid, George, and Maxey? Because I'll tell you, Mike, the lost part about this season so far is not a lot of people have paid attention, but Paul George is pretty freaking good.
Yeah, he is good, and Maxey has been up and down. He's had some games where he's just been tremendous. He's had some other games where he just hasn't played well at all. Obviously, fans kind of latched on to McCain, and he goes down. Embiid, who knows, Mike? You can't. Here's the situation: they're 8-16, right? They're behind the Nets, who are 11-16. They're behind the Detroit Pistons, who are 11-17. They're in the same neighborhood as the Charlotte Hornets, who are 7-20. The Raptors, who are 7-21. If Joel Embiid was 22 or 23 or 24 years old and Paul George was 22, 23 or 24 years old, you could maybe say this is a lost season. Let's shut it down for the long haul, make sure these guys are healthy, maybe get another good draft choice. But these guys aren't that age. Joel Embiid is 30, 31. Paul George is 33, 34. You can't punt seasons away on this team. So you've got to try to win as many games as you can, and you've got to get into the playoffs and then hope something happens that's never happened before, and that is Joel Embiid stays healthy for 2 months, and you're able to make a deep playoff run. But you can't say this is a lost season. You can't throw this season away with the age of Embiid and George. If these guys were in their early 20s, maybe you could think like that. But these guys are in their 30s, and you got to figure out a way to make a run and maybe hope you're the Miami Heat of a couple of years ago and come from a play-in game to the NBA Finals. That's the only choice they have in my mind.
Yeah, by the way, Philadelphia is a game and a half behind Brooklyn for the play-in spot. They are 3 games behind Chicago and Indiana for the 8 and 9 spots. They are 4 games behind the Hawks for the 7 seed, and they are 5 games behind Miami for the 6, 5.5 behind the Bucks for the 5th. So it's not insurmountable for them to get all the way up to that 3 area, which is where they're about 7 games behind the Knicks. But they would have to do what the Bucks did, turn their season around, 8 out of 10. They have to win 11 out of 14, something like that. And if they get these 3 guys that can play a month together, for God's sakes, that's the only way this happens. All right, Mike, they're calling it maybe the best football day of the year, but I completely disagree. They're playing the college games up against the pro games. What were they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, this is what you have to do to get the playoff games in. But, I mean, tomorrow's a day for 2 TVs. And what TV do you put the sound on, right? Do you have the sound on the NFL games or do you have the sound on the college football games, right? But it is a tremendous sports day starting tonight with the Notre Dame-Indiana game and then going into the games tomorrow. Mike, what I'm interested in seeing most of all, you look at the people tailgating out at Notre Dame already in the snow out there. Usually in college football, we're used to bowl games being played in domes, sunny locations. I'm interested to see a playoff game at Notre Dame tonight in the snow, 25 degrees out. Tomorrow, up at Penn State, 25 degrees
Love
out. I think this is going to be interesting. I think these college football games are going to be great. And then you move into, you mix in a couple of good NFL games in there with it. And boy, yeah, clear the decks tomorrow. I mean, I'll be over at Ocean City for Ocean City PBA tip-off weekend, but I'll have my computer with me and be watching the games over there as I watch some high school basketball on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. I said they should have played the games Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday night, Saturday night. Give these games.
That is a tremendous idea. I mean, why are they playing these 3 games on Saturday? That's a great idea. Play the games, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe skip Thursday.
Yep.
Because you got the NFL play tonight, and then play a game on Saturday night to end. Play the 2 NFL games during the day.
Yep.
That's it, Mike. What are you doing over there? You should be programming networks. What's going on here?
I agree. Yeah. By the way, Tuesday night it would have been up against the NBA Cup. Nobody cares. You'd watch the football game. Wednesday night, you'd watch the football game. Get the LA Bowl out there. Throw the LA Bowl on Saturday afternoon, and then Friday night, this game here. You got everyone's going to watch it. Saturday night, the 2 NFL games. Bang! Here we go. They don't play again. The winners of these games don't play until New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. There's plenty of time to recover. That's what they should have done. It would have been an awesome week of football. Alas, we have all these games tomorrow, and you got to figure out what to do with the volume and the TV. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. The high school football season is in the books, but basketball tipped off this week, and as you just said, you'll be over at the tip-off. There's holiday classics going on. What are some of the early storylines for you?
Well, we've got, Atlantic City boys basketball, Middle Township boys basketball off to impressive 2-0 starts there. We had a guy from Bridgeton, Jameel Purnell, scored 52 points last night against Mastery of Camden. Set a school record, dropped 52 points right there. We got Jalen Bell of EHT opening night against Mainland, the son of Coach Cameron Bell over there at EHT. He sank 7 3-pointers in a win over there. And we've got the EHT girls, led by Avery Harding, Division I player who's committed to New Hampshire. She's got them off to a 2-0 start. And Mainland Regional girls, who graduated just about everybody from a team that won the state Group 3 title last year, showed that, maybe they're going to be a little bit better than everybody thinks with a win over Atlantic City last night. So the high school basketball season off to a great start. And like you said, we've got games Saturday and Sunday over at Ocean City for PBA tip-off weekend. And then the Boardwalk Basketball Classic down at the Wildwoods Convention Center really kicks into gear on Sunday. So local sports on your TV, sports on your live, just a great time of the year.
Yeah, by the way, we've got upsets last night. Camden High went down to Bishop Eustace.
Right.
I called that game. What a wild finish. Camden was down 8 with about 40 seconds left. Got all the way back to the final shot at the buzzer. They go down. I saw Ocean City beat St. Augustine the other night, so it's been a wild start. The high school basketball season's here. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City has you covered. And, of course, he'll be back on Monday on a busy weekend. We'll recap it on the Sports Bash. All right, buddy.
All right, Michael. We'll see you down the road. Everybody have a great weekend. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com here on the Sports Bash. We got so much more to go. Boy, we're going all the way till 6 o'clock tonight. Can we make it? Do we have enough energy in the tank? Of course we do. The Christmas season is here. Me and you on a Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday right here on 97.3 ESPN. All right, 252 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, Instagram, at Mike Gill Show. What do we got, Josh?
Yeah, we got some people chiming in at 609-403-0973. Like Croce, he says, realistically, for us to get the 1 seed is going to come down to the last week of the season. Guess my question is, if the Vikings and Eagles end up with the same record, who holds the 1 seed, Mike Gill?
According to some reports, if the season goes the way that if they both end up with the same record, the Vikings would have strength of victory tiebreaker over if they both win out with the same record.
Correct.
Now, I don't know what happens if they both lose another game and end up with the same record.
Well, the key is if the Vikings lose to the Packers. If the Vikings lose to the Packers, the Eagles hold a common opponent tiebreaker over them.
Right. So right now, if they both go to the end of the season at 15-2, Minnesota would be the 1, Philadelphia would be the 2.
That's correct.
And Detroit would be the 5.
Oh, how the mighty have fallen. 15 guys in the injured reserve. Good grief.
Yeah, it's a tough thing to overcome.
Shaner in EHT says, so no back-to-back division winners. When is the last time a team swept the NFC East, though?
Probably Philadelphia, back in the Andy Reid, early
I would say the Andy Reid
era.
Yeah.
I think, Philadelphia's the last team to win back-to-back. It was like 04-05 or 03-04, something like that. They're the last team to do it. So if they're going to put it this way, if that streak's going to end, Philadelphia's going to have to win the division again next year. And that would mean a 20-year-old streak would come to an end. So better enjoy this division if you're a fan of winning division championships.
Yeah, exactly. Mike in Wildwood chimes in. I'm definitely loving all this football, but definitely watching me drink all this beer is the best. Happy Hour Friday.
Yeah, what are we having on a Happy Hour Friday? Let us know. 609-403-0973. I got some Happy Hour Fridays. I see our friends at Anglesey Ale Works are watching on the Instagram. What's up, guys, over there? I got a couple plays for you, a couple of Happy Hour Friday picks for you guys out there today.
I'm looking forward to it. I got some picks for you, too, because I was my day off. I went to a brewery again.
Let's get down to business. All right,
what does it say about me? I take a day off. I just go drink.
Good for you, man. Got to keep your liver healthy, right? Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Saturday, we've got Penn State and SMU, followed by the Steelers and Ravens, and then Tennessee, Ohio State. You can hear those 3 games Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. For those of you looking for the Flyers tomorrow, they're on our sister station, Rock 104.1. Tonight's Sixers game is also on our sister station, Rock 104.1. Not an easy out, says Mike Mayock. Their defense, is that the key in this game? What will they have to stop? The Eagles' pass game, the Eagles' rushing game. Mike, I look at Mike Mayock said, their defense, not an easy out here. But I would look at their defense and say, look, if you can't figure out a way to go after this defense, you got problems. All right, I get it. He's telling you, not an easy out. This reminds me of the game from the other night, as we talked about earlier. When Green Bay played Seattle, you just saw a difference in the two teams. One's a wild card team, one's a Super Bowl contender. John McMullen, Birds 365, Sports Illustrated, joins us on a Friday as he does. He's brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop their lineup of new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned Hondas online, boardwalkhonda.com. John, if I ask you about the Washington Commanders, what sticks out about them first, their offense or their defense?
Well, I think the quarterback first. Obviously, that's been the big change and shift in Washington on the field. But I do think there's a little bit of, sort of default setting to, it's Washington, they stink. And I don't think they do stink. And I think they've made, the shift from Daniel Snyder to Josh Harris. Obviously, we've seen the dysfunction with the New York Jets, heard about it this week. And there's a lot to having a better organization, and that's already in a very short period of time is developed into more good decision making. Dan Quinn's a competent head coach at the bare minimum. They made the right choice, and number 2 overall is going to be the offensive rookie of the year. And I heard you talking about their defense. Yeah, I'm with Mike. They're much better than you're giving them credit for on defense. And the fact that, I think it starts with their linebackers, Bobby Wagner and Frankie Luvu. For those who paid attention in Week 11, Luvu had a tremendous game. And I think people forget as it goes into the rearview mirror, they were in that game for 55 minutes. They were leading into the fourth quarter. So I think there's this, it's Washington, it's the Commanders, and they've been bad for so long. I always say with those bad teams, the same thing happened with Detroit. They were bad for so long. You keep drafting at the top of the draft, and all of a sudden you hit on somebody, and all of a sudden you wake up, that seems pretty good. I think that's where we are with the Washington Commanders.
I think a lot of it, we were talking about this right before you came on, John. The two teams have not been in the playoffs at the same time since 1992. Washington's just been so inept that the juice doesn't kind of, you don't have the juice that you have for a Giant game and a Cowboy game, even though these two teams are division rivals. Washington's always kind of been the third one, but this could be the start of a run here. The same team hasn't won the division in 20 years. It's going to happen again where a new team wins. And if Philly doesn't win it next year, it might be Washington's time. And to get there, it starts with this game here. Because if Washington wins this game, it might start something.
Yeah, I do think it's a bigger game for Washington than Philadelphia. The Eagles are going to win the NFC East no matter what happens in this game eventually. Obviously they want the number 1 seed, so they want to win the game. But I think it's a bigger measuring stick game when it comes to Washington, no doubt, than Philadelphia. But, yeah, you're right. When you talk about how long this organization, this franchise has been down, before when Joe Gibbs and the old Redskins were actually good, it was a big rivalry. And that's kind of fueled by the 3 Super Bowls that they won over that time frame and how good they were on the field, and that just went into the pot when Daniel Snyder, arguably the worst owner in sports, and they've gotten to finally move on from that, and it's no surprise they're getting a little bit better. But yeah, I think it's tough to get off that thought process of it's Washington, and they're going to be a playoff team most likely, so they have a lot to play for.
If they lose this game, Philadelphia has a chance to kind of knock them out, because if they lose this game and the Rams and Seattle, now those two teams have their own battle going for the division down there, but the loser of that division, if they win, it's going to be interesting. If Washington loses this game, it's going to be interesting to see if they can hold on here at the end.
Well, yeah, I mean, they still have work to do. That's why it's far more important for them. But, I mean, if you look at Los Angeles and Seattle, the West, and, Seattle's, I know, got to play Minnesota this week. So, and Geno Smith is banged up. So, there's no guarantee they're going to keep winning. The Rams are okay, but there's no guarantees that they're going to keep winning. So, I mean, they're in the mix, and the fact that they're in the mix, like, I've been saying all week, because a lot of Eagles fans have, chalked this up as a win, and I don't think it's going to be easy. And I think the weather helps as well, and the fact I think it's going to keep some scoring down. It's going to be really cold, so I think that'll help Washington as well. But yeah, I mean, they had the number 2 pick on merit. They didn't get there by trading up or doing anything or sending 17 picks to get Jaden Daniels.
I like that.
They got it on merit, and all of a sudden, the next year they're already 9-5 in a position to close out and make the playoffs. That's pretty good.
Listen, at the beginning of this year, they were the team that, I said could be the Texans if the number 2 pick, Daniels, was equivalent to what Stroud meant for that team last year. I don't know that he was as good as Stroud was last year, but he has changed the complete dynamics of that team. They deserved a lot of credit for what they've done. And you're right, they do have some interesting things about this defense, and they got, McLaurin. The Eagles really shut him down the first time they've played. They've kind of moved him around the field a little bit since that time. But, Philadelphia, you talk about the battle of attrition with what's going on with Detroit. What's up with A.J. Brown? He says, I'm playing. He kind of smiled and laughed about it. But should there be, or is there any concern about him this week or moving forward?
Well, I definitely think he's not 100%. But as A.J. kind of said, I mean, nobody's 100%. Same thing with Saquon. He's not even on the injury report. So, I mean, it's that time of the year in the NFL. If you've been playing, you're banged up in some form. So he's going to play through it. We'll see how it looks when he's out there. But, yeah, I mean, we were all sitting there because Nick Sirianni talks before practice. And I don't know if you saw it, but he was really short with us when it came to A.J. It was like he was not happy. And it was almost like, uh-oh, what's going on with A.J.? I don't know why Nick handles injuries the way he handles injuries, because I think it creates more problems. But and then we're on the practice field 30 minutes later, and A.J.'s out there. After practice, he said he's playing. But, he banged up his knee in practice and tweaked it, whatever. So he's dealing with something. But, Jalen Hurts is dealing with a broken finger.
Yeah, and how was that? He did say it kind of, it's on his left hand, but, how does that kind of, has he explained how that has affected him at all?
Yeah, well, obviously it's more in ball handling and how he carries the football, because he can't necessarily carry it in that arm all the time when he wants to. So it affects, obviously it's not going to affect him throwing the football in the opposite, but it does affect ball handling, RPOs, mesh points. If he wants to go under center, he's got as he called it, a shattered finger. So it's not something you enjoy when it gets poked or prodded. And, he's wearing a big glove out there. It was very cold today at practice, wearing a big glove on his left hand. So he's got that. Saquon was dealing with whether it was a right leg or right knee injury, A.J. with a knee injury. So, but everybody's got something at this time of year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And obviously, let's get into your thoughts then on Bryce Huff and whether or not he might play in this game. You get any better indication today?
Yeah, Bryce talked as well. So, he said he's day-to-day. Obviously, he's instructed not to say whether he's going to be activated. But he did say he's got full functionality back. Problem was he couldn't use his hand as he was trying to fight through it. And the Eagles felt, well, if we're going to get him back for the stretch run and the playoffs, they had to have the surgery when they did. ultimately, he's going to be back. It's only a question of to me, if it's this week or next week. Maybe they play it cautious because of the weather and how cold it's going to be. So no guarantees, but he's going to be back very soon. No doubt about that. And that's, I think, a bigger get back than people realize, because I think they're hyper-focused on him not living up to the contract he signed, which is completely true. But at this point, you need an extra edge rusher. You've been going very light with three guys, essentially, Josh Sweat, Nolan Smith, and Jalen Hunt, and you don't want to do that. Last week, they only had 43 defensive plays. That's how well they played, but you can't count on that every week. The average game is 60, 65. Sometimes if you have a good offensive day, which can get up into the 70s, even the 80s, you're going to need that extra edge rusher. And Bryce Huff's going to be an important get back, even though he hasn't lived up to the billing as the sort of centerpiece of the pass rush.
Yeah, well, I would agree. And even coming from somebody who was, not all that excited about the signing when it happened, I would love to see him make an impact. I mean, to add something like, as you just kind of indicated, correct me if I'm wrong, John, they were hoping this guy was the main pass rusher, not just an afterthought guy.
No, definitely. I mean, centerpiece. He was going to be the centerpiece of the pass rush. And, when you think about finishers and edge guys, Jalen Carter was always going to be a big part of it, and is a big part of it. But there's only so much you can do as an interior guy. If you really want that big sack guy, it's going to generally come from the outside. And that's what the Eagles were envisioning, Bryce Huff. Let's be honest, they were talking about 15 sacks. This is a guy who did double digits in a very limited role with the Jets. No reason to think if you increase that it wouldn't increase to at least 12, 13. And they were not getting near that production. So I look at it, there's two ways to look at this. You can be hyper-focused on that and saying, oh, this guy's a huge disappointment. Or you can say, all right, that milk is already spilled, so now it's about, can he help us in the run toward a potential Super Bowl? And the latter part, I think, is yes. But you got to get over the first part to get to the latter part.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, you're right. I mean, he had 10 sacks last year in limited time. It was kind of like a part-time guy and got to the quarterback. One of the reasons why, you look at this guy, that what he could add is if you can get someone to rush the passer over these next 3 games and then have that for the playoffs, it just adds another dynamic that I guess, I don't know, are we done questioning whether they have enough pass rush?
Well, I'll tell you what, effectiveness-wise, I was looking at that today because we went down that wormhole on Birds 365, and from a advanced standpoint, from a film standpoint, I know PFF has him as the second best pass rush in football in the entire league, and I think people don't look at it that way because they don't have huge sack numbers, but as Vic will tell you, Jonathan Gannon would have told you, Jim Schwartz would have told you. They don't care as much about sacks as are you impacting the quarterback. And I forget which game it was, but Troy Aikman was doing one of the games. I don't know. And Troy had a great quote, and he basically said he believes quarterback sacks are a quarterback stat because of the quarterback brought Tom Brady up. Like, Tom Brady's not going to let you sack him. He's going to get the football out on time. So I think it's one of the most overrated metrics in the NFL, sack numbers. Chris Long will tell you that, and he's a pass rusher. And he's like, sometimes I'd run into a sack because maybe Fletcher Cox had a good interior rush. Mm-hmm. So you have to look at them each individually. And then you look at the NFC Championship game in 2017 to bring up Chris. He completely changed that game around. And it wasn't a sack. It was a pressure. There's a pressure on Case Keenum that caused the interception that sent the Lynx on fire. So, they've had a very good pass rush, and it's centered on Jalen Carter. But I think so many people don't recognize it because the sack numbers aren't there.
Right. Well, and it's a good breakdown, because you're right. A lot of times, generally, the pass rush, your best pass rush, isn't from a guy from up the middle. But we've talked about Chris Jones in Kansas City, Aaron Donald in the Rams. Not that they were like 20 sack guys, 15 sack guys, but you had Kansas City Rams, two teams that have won Super Bowls recently, that their most disruptive defensive lineman was a tackle similar to Philadelphia. I think we just always think of that edge guy as the star.
Yeah, and that's because those are the guys who get the big sack numbers.
Yes.
And look,
I guess the question would be, is Jalen Carter on the level or trending to the level of a Jones and a Donald? I'm not saying he's better, but is he in closer to that category? For whatever reason, I feel like he has not. Maybe people, because of what happened at the end of last year, have not embraced that this guy's been as dominant as he's been.
Yeah, I think the only box to check for Jalen Carter now is more consistency from play to play. He's been dominant, and he's already the guy that everybody is, sliding their protection to, and he's the guy who's going to get double teamed. So I think all of that has come. I think he's already at that level. One of the reasons Milton Williams is having one of the best years as a pass rusher for interior guys in the NFL from a pass rush win rate standpoint, and that's because getting a ton of one-on-ones, and he's taking advantage of them. So you have impact. You're making other players better. I think that's the only box. I mean, conditioning was one coming off last season, but he's playing, amazing number of snaps to the point we've asked Vic multiple times, is he playing too much? And to his credit, I mean, Vic said before the season, he's going to play a lot, and they got him ready for it, and he's playing at a high level. So, I mean, he's there, whether people know it or not. Yeah. He's an all-pro level player, and I'm never going to compare anybody to Aaron Donald because I think he's one of the great defense players of all time. But everybody else, including Chris Jones, including, Cameron Haywood, who we saw last week, including Dexter Lawrence, he's in that group. He's in that group already.
Well, we'll see what the Eagles defense has this week against the Washington Commanders. And, of course, the Commanders come in with a chance to make the playoffs. That doesn't happen every year for them. They're down in Washington. Should be a good crowd. First game of the year, really, where it's going to be a little chilly out there. First time all season long where it will be a little cold on a Sunday here. John McMullen, of course, Birds 365. They will be recapping all the action Monday at 8 a.m. on the Jacob Media YouTube channel. All right, John, appreciate it, pal.
All right, thanks, Mike.
There's John. Of course, he is brought to you by Boardwalk Honda. Shop their lineup of new, pre-owned, and certified pre-owned Hondas online, boardwalkhonda.com. Mike Gill in the Sports Bash with you. It's a Friday afternoon, happy hour Friday, we affectionately call it. We're always looking for what you're having on this happy hour Friday. We already have some early entries into today's happy hour Friday. We got a little hazy at Hunter Mountain from Shaner. I like the hazy IPA at Hunter Mountain. You didn't give me the name. It's just I like the style, or is that the name of it? Is the beer hazy IPA at Hunter Mountain? I don't think so. I think you're just having a Hunter Mountain day and having a little hazy along with it. What else we got here? Biz and Absecon have a little Captain and Coke. Okay, a little Captain and Coke. That's your style, not mine. Hope everyone at the Sports Bash has a Merry Christmas. The NFL is Scrooge in my house. No Netflix. Jeff in Ocean City. No Netflix. So he's going college football, it sounds like.
Well, the NFL Netflix games are Christmas Day.
Yes.
So tomorrow, I believe, is what, NFL Network, I believe, is tomorrow.
That's a good question. I don't know who's doing the games tomorrow.
I thought the Saturday games for NFL
Sometimes.
Network.
I don't. I'm trying to think. I thought
It's a little
tomorrow. No.
confusing.
Tomorrow's game is Fox because I think Brady's doing the game tomorrow, and I think it's Fox and
Fox
might be,
is the second
might
game.
be
Steelers,
NBC the
Ravens.
early game.
Yeah, NBC/Peacock.
Yeah, I don't think
is the early game.
NFL Network really does anything other than the London the international games now. Phil says Happy
That's
Hour
next
Friday.
Saturday.
What's that?
Next Saturday is the 3 NFL Network games, the 20
Gotcha.
games.
Happy Hour Friday from Phil. He says, Mike, in my honest opinion, lay the 3.5 on the Eagles. Some talking heads saying Lattimore will make a difference. Really? I'm interested in hearing all the football betting advice, both college and pro today. We'll have some there for you, Phil. I got a bunch of little trends that we like to go with. Question, if the Eagles and Lions run the table, I know the Lions win the tiebreaker based on conference record, but if the Vikings run the table, beating the Lions in Week 17, both the Eagles and Vikings would end up 15-2. Who gets the one? That would be Minnesota. Right now, based on, from what we understand, if they both end up 15-2, the Vikings would have a stronger strength of victory, which is the 4th tiebreaker. Common opponents, they would be both 4-1, both have the same conference record, and there you go to strength of victory. And the Vikings, by beating the Lions and Green Bay, I think en route to get there, would pass Philadelphia strength of victory-wise.
Right, and that's why the Packers game next Sunday is so important if you're an Eagles fan, because if you're an Eagles fan, you're rooting for the Packers to take the Vikings down a notch.
What else we got? Let me get Kevin Durso's 3 stars of the game last night. Loss for the Flyers, 7-3. Star number 3 brought to you by Kindle Auto Plaza, Stone Harbor Boulevard, Cape May Courthouse. Kindle is the family dealership you can trust for your next Ford, Dodge, Chrysler, and Ram. Joel Farabee was star number 3 last night. Noah Cates with a goal for the Fly Guys. And Tyson Forrester almost had a hat trick last night. 2 goals, an assist, +3, 5 shots. I actually saw he almost had the hat trick. I was watching little Flyers on the ESPN Plus last night.
Yeah, a lot of people I saw online griping they couldn't find the game at first. They were like, I didn't know it was on the Plus.
See, I didn't realize that those games were exclusive games. I thought that they were also on the local networks when they were on Plus.
Yeah, well, you're thinking in terms of other sports, not hockey. That's the problem.
Gotcha. All right.
Those hockey guys, they get you.
Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. When we come back, it is today's Outside View. We go to Washington with former Washington wide receiver Anthony Armstrong. He joins us next on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. That was Mike Mayock on the Believe in Eagles podcast. Anthony Armstrong is host of Believe in Commanders, former Washington wide receiver. He joins us now for today's Outside View. Our Outside View today brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing, service, and installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907, online at broadlees.net. Jaden Daniels. How far has he come since the last time we saw him a month ago where he seemed to be a little banged up in that game? Anthony, we bring you in on that conversation because, everybody was buzzing about Jaden Daniels, and the Eagles saw him and kind of kept him in check. But has he come back to the guy that he was before the Week 11 matchup?
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me. I do think Jaden is definitely closer to what you saw earlier in the season coming off these last couple of wins. Finding a way to make some throws and getting back in rhythm with his receivers. Last time Philly caught him on a short week, coming off of a tough loss against Pittsburgh as well. So now this is full time. He's going to have a full week's rest and able to, focus on what Philly's going to do. And I expect him to have a better performance.
When you look at this Washington team now, they played Philly. That was a good game. It was in Philly, and then Philly, the big run by Barkley that kind of broke away late to kind of, pull away there. But that was a good game. They were leading that game late. How much has Washington grown off of that loss?
Man, I think when you had your leaders step up and Wagner and then Ertz and those guys just talking to those younger players and letting them know what the goal was now. They have something in front of them to play for, and 3 games left, big opponent this week with Philly. I think this team has grown a lot and some maturity and once again find a way to win against New Orleans. I think they're primed for what's in front of them, and they're going to take it like one game at a time and put their best effort on the field.
Well, when you look at it, this is a team that has not had a lot of playoff appearances in recent years. The pressure starts to get you a little bit, especially when you have a young quarterback. Is that a feeling that as you're getting later in the season and the Rams and the Seahawks are nipping on their ankles and they have to play Philly, is there pressure for Washington going into this game?
I think people may try to apply pressure, but the one thing about Jaden Daniels is that the guy is cooler than the other side of the pillow, as Stuart Scott would say. Like, the guy is calm, and I think the questions really were more on what was the coaching staff going to do? I think the biggest question was how does Cliff Kingsbury adjust in the second half of seasons? And he even said it before. He was like, shoot, I had too much going against Philly last time. It was a short week, so being able to come at him now with more time on my hands, you'd expect to see him, show up with a better game plan.
Saquon Barkley's obviously going for a historic season here. He had a big game the last time against Washington. Heck, his whole career's been big against Washington. He has the 3rd most scrimmage yards against Washington than any opponent in the history of the NFL. So when he goes against Washington, you could generally pencil him in for about 140. Is he the guy this week that would worry you the most? Or after seeing Philly throw the ball finally last week, does that now enter a whole nother dimension for the Washington defense?
Yeah, I think that you have the perfect addition showing up right now with Marshawn Lattimore to help you with the running game, ironically enough, because he can go man-on-man with A.J. Brown, and then that allows you to bring a safety into the box. And now you're going to have to decide, are you going to run into some stacked box situations? And, if that's what you're going to need to do to stop Saquon Barkley. You can't go too high safety and think you're going to stop him. You saw last week there was some runs made by the Saints on Washington. So when you change the when you change the running back to Saquon Barkley, those runs that were 5 or 10 yards last week, they can get broken for 20, 30 yards or more. So you're definitely going to be able to challenge. But ironically enough, Marshawn Lattimore is going to help this run defense.
We're talking with Anthony Armstrong, Believe in Commanders podcast. It's the Eagles and Commanders. Yeah, you bring in Vladimir. He did not play the last time. He was not a part of that. But obviously, the Eagles have a lot of weapons on the field, so we'll see. It appears that Allen is not going to play in the game. How much does that kind of, change the dynamics of their defense?
Man, you didn't have him coming in just yet, so, you already know you're down one big dominating player in the middle. Joe Witt Jr. is going to be up for a challenge. See how you're going to handle Kellen Moore in this defense, this offense, really, and he's going to have to get creative. Find some other ways to create some pressure. Like I said, Jeremy Chin up there, Frankie Luvu's already been able to apply pressure on the quarterback and some timely run blitzes. So it's going to be a chess match that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, and the one thing is Philadelphia last week, they kind of, there was a lot of drama down here, if you didn't notice, Anthony. There was a lot of drama about, A.J. Brown, what's wrong with the offense. He says passing, and then the whole place blew up, and, they answered those critics. They had a big game through the passing game, and that kind of made people say, maybe they can throw the ball if they have to throw the ball. But if you are game planning for Philadelphia's offense, are you more concerned about their passing game, or are you more concerned about Barkley?
I'm concerned about Barkley because it's just wears down on you. It's just something that you think you have him bottled up for 3 quarters, and the next thing you know, it's a big fourth quarter. So it's something that can always hit you. But don't disrespect those receivers. I mean, 2 top receivers in the league. They can go anywhere else and be number 1 guys, Devontae and AJ. So you got to respect those guys. And the way the recent history has been between these 2 teams, AJ's been able to have success. But now that young fella is in L.A., he's going to have a different matchup. And so how do you cover Devontae, and how do you cover the tight end? Are you going to be able to roll some different looks out there for Jalen? So it's going to take a full team effort on that defensive side. I don't think you have one guy that's just going to shut the whole thing down. But you're going to have to play some games and take advantage of the opportunities when the ball find it your way.
All right, on the other side of the ball, you got Philadelphia's defense. What concerns when you look at that defense? You got Jalen Carter, obviously up front. The pass rush is weird. They don't have that guy. Like, there is not that edge rusher. They just kind of been going all over the place. Is this a week? Because I think the Washington offensive line might have their hands full a little bit. This isn't the strong suit of the Washington football team, or the Commanders now. But is that Eagles pass rush something that you look at and wonder, how did they get there, or is it a legit concern?
Man, the names that you listed off, regardless if the stats aren't with there, you still got to pay attention to who they are. Coming off of those, few injuries for Washington, they may be at full speed, but it's always been a question mark throughout this season. So, if you don't have to go back and drop back 30, 40 times, that's going to bode well for Washington. So I'm going to need the offensive line to get behind their pads. Cliff Kingsbury find a way to generate a running game. Find somebody else to catch the ball other than Terry McLaurin. Even though the last matchup, Terry only had 1 catch for 10 yards. That won't happen this game.
Yeah,
let that happen again.
I was going to bring that up to you. They found a way to kind of keep him in check. It seems that they're moving him around the field a little bit more. Last time they matched up, he primarily lined up on the left side of the field, and he kind of got bracketed in the red zone there. And it seems that after that game, they've moved him around a lot more.
Yeah, they really did. And coming out of that bye week, a lot of motion and shifting, even in the no huddle with Terry last week. So I expect to see some more of that. Like, you have to find a way to get your guy the ball early. He's helping the offense get open, right? He's going to help that running game get open if they can have some success through the air. So somebody else has to show up. Noah Brown's down, but you got Jamison Crowder back, so he's a wily vet, going to be on the inside in the slot. So if he can get open against, DeJean, I'm looking forward to see that matchup too.
Well, I was going to say, you had Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. That's really changed the dynamics of this defense, last year, which was porous. Those 2 guys have really added. Then Zach Bond as the linebacker. You got Brian Robinson, who's always been kind of a pain in the butt for Philadelphia here. And Zach Ertz, I think he's another interesting matchup. He caught the touchdown in the game the last time they played, but that is one spot where you think, hey, can you get the Eagles in the middle of the field if Zach Ertz can be a big factor for Jaden Daniels this week?
Yeah, he had that. He went out of the game last week with a concussion, so I don't think I saw his name on the injury report. We'll see coming into the week, but it's all hands on deck. I mean, it's all hands on deck. I mean, Philly, you got to respect Philly. This is not an easy opponent. They're top of the division for a reason, and it's going to take a full team effort, special teams included.
Mm-hmm.
Press away. Pinning them deep. Like, it could be one of those slugfests where it's just low scoring, ugly football, but it comes down to the finer details at the end of it.
Well, and one of the things we were talking about is, Anthony, the Philadelphia Eagles and the Washington Commanders have not been in the playoffs the same year together since 1992. It's the last time they both were in the playoffs at the same time. So to have a game between these two teams this late in the season means so much. I mean, Philly's trying to get the 1 seed, win the division. Washington's trying to get into the playoffs. If they get in the playoffs, they could face each other. There's a really good chance they play again. This just really adds to the fact that these two teams haven't had a lot of history in the last almost 30 years.
Oh, I know it. It's unprecedented territory. Nobody on the Commanders team knows anything about it. These kids weren't even born whenever this team was last in the playoff, which is crazy to think. But it feels good, I can say, from the Washington side to actually be playing meaningful football right now. We normally be thinking about vacation, like what's coming up next. Now we're like, okay, you might get a game or two in January. You got to think 2 months of football left.
Well, I want to get
you think right now.
I want to get your take on that because you've covered this team throughout the last couple of years, and you take a look at the new ownership and how that has changed. And I say that with many people here are familiar with the ownership group, obviously, because they own the Sixers. And I want to get your take on how the ownership group has been perceived in Washington and the role of that change in ownership in the success on the field.
Man, when you say if you were to cut on a box fan and you could see a cloud literally move from over the top of Ashburn, Virginia, that's what it's been like. It's been refreshing because Josh Harris and crew have been all about doing things the right way. They're communicating with fans to get real feedback, and they actually give a damn about this process. And the fact that they were able to hit with the GM and then with players and coaches and then now on-field success. My goodness, they couldn't ask for anything better. So, I mean, Commanders fans are like pinching themselves a little bit, but they feel like it's real now. So I'm interested, though, because I was thinking about this yesterday, and how, with him coming from the 76ers, is this surprising to see him have success with the Commanders so quickly?
If you asked 50 different Sixer fans, you'd get 25 on one side, 25 on the other. There are 25 that would say, I like what he's done with the Sixers. They haven't won a championship, but, they went through the process. They spent a lot of money. They just haven't won ultimately. Then you have the other side that say, it's a scam artist. They lost on purpose. So it's a very polarizing ownership group because of how it started here. In Washington, it started right off the bat with success, where here in Philly, it started with 3 consecutive, historic losing seasons, almost purposely.
Okay, well then I get it. Y'all are probably halfway salty that he put some little extra cheating in. Yeah, I get that. I feel that.
It's a weird dynamic, and not to mention, Anthony, he also owns the Devils, which is the Flyers, the Philadelphia Flyers' biggest rival, really. So you've got the Eagles' one of their biggest rivals in Washington. He owns that team. Then he owns the Philadelphia Flyers' biggest rivalry, and then he owns a team in town here. So it's almost been this weird dynamic. That's why I was kind of interested to see how he was being received in Washington.
But he grew up a Washington fan. So this is Dan Snyder was a fan of the team, and then now Josh is a fan of the team, and his cohort is were fans as well. So now they're getting to do it the right way.
Yeah.
So I think there's probably more of a connection to it because this is his childhood team, and he wants to make sure it's done the right way. So
that said,
very interesting dynamic, but I'm glad he's hitting it over here.
Yeah, that said, I have kind of been more pro Harris in terms of I liked what they did. I liked that they had a plan to kind of try to get out of mediocrity. It has not worked to the success on the court. I will say it has been a grand slam home run off the court in terms of interest in the team. I mean, this interest in the Sixers was at an all-time high. Now it's starting to get a little rocky now with all the injuries and stuff, but not to mention it kind of coincided with, has his interest gone more to the football team than the basketball team? There's been a lot of that conversation. But I like the fact that it has kind of maybe reignited Washington and Philadelphia. They haven't been in the playoffs together since 1992, and that might happen this year. How important is this game for Washington to make that happen?
Man, it's the next one is the most important one. This is paramount. I don't even want to get to thinking about, well, if we lose, what other ways can you make it in? Just everything's right in front of you. Just take care of business against Philly.
Anthony Armstrong is host of Believe in Commanders on the Believe Podcast Network. It's Eagles-Commanders. They renew their rivalry this Sunday at 1 o'clock. You can listen to the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Anthony, it's always good to catch up with you. And, hey, might be a third meeting. We might have you back.
Hey, let's do it. I'm up for it.
All right, brother. We'll talk to you. There's Anthony Armstrong here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube and on Instagram at Mike Gill Show. You can watch the show all over. You can listen to the show on the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City and, of course, on the radio at 97.3 ESPN. I look forward to the matchup on Sunday. I hear a lot of the things he's saying. Next game in front of you, but the pressure has to be there just a little bit for them, wouldn't you think? The playoffs, if they lose this game, the pressure's really on them. So we'll get into much, much more here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Knicks Nuggets coming up at 4:30. Football at 4 with Adam Caplan in 15 minutes. Stick around. Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. All right, 350 Sports Bash Live. Time for the Friday Five. Brought to you by BMW of Atlantic City. Your luxury BMW experience is closer than you think. Take advantage of exceptional savings and experience luxury today. BMW Atlantic City in Egg Harbor Township. All right, Josh, let's take a look at the schedule. What's my Friday Five going to look like today?
Now, are you going to mix in some college football, or is it going to be just NFL?
Good question. I might. Let me see the NFL schedule. I got good games this week.
Some.
Pittsburgh, Baltimore. Count me in.
Great game. It's on Saturday, though.
It's all right.
Now, are you the kind of person who's going to say, hey, I'm going to go do what I got to do before 4 p.m. so I can settle in 4:30?
I'll be somewhere. The game will be on.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll have that game going.
Gotcha.
Minnesota, Seattle. I'm in.
Important game.
Yes.
Now it's
The rest is rough.
Yeah, the rest is where you're going to have to either get creative
Houston,
or go college
Kansas
football.
City.
Right, that's Saturday, the early game.
Well, if you're telling me to go in college football, they're on Saturday.
That's true. So you're going to go, would you go?
I got, the game I'm most interested in is tonight. Notre Dame, Indiana.
Hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN.
Yeah, if you're looking for the Sixers tonight. By the way, some quick Sixers news. Brandon Miller, who basically single-handedly almost beat the Sixers by himself the other night, and LaMelo Ball, they are both out tonight for the Hornets.
I mean, if you're the Sixers and you don't win this game, it's
Yeah.
a huge indictment.
That's pretty bad. So Indiana, Notre Dame would be part of my Friday Five.
Okay, so let's say it's that would be number what? 3?
4.
4. Okay.
Yeah, the other college game that interests me the most would probably be, I mean, these matchups aren't great. I'm not like SMU, Penn State. Wow. It's snowing. There's going to be 111,000. I think it's going to be a cool atmosphere.
It's going to be great to watch on television.
Tonight's game, snow in South Bend.
See, they sent Hannah Storm back to her alma mater for the game.
Really?
Yeah.
First time a Notre Dame game is not on NBC at home since 1990.
Wild.
1990. It was Penn State, Notre Dame. Notre Dame was number 1 in the country. It was Lou Holtz against Joe Paterno. I kind of mismatched
I was
going to
ask you who's Lou Paterno. But...
Yeah, Joe Paterno, Lou Holtz, they were the coaches. It was number 1 Notre Dame against 18th ranked Penn State. It was November 17th, 1990. It was on ESPN. It's the last time a Notre Dame home game was not on NBC television.
And coincidentally, both Notre Dame and Penn State are playing in the playoff this weekend.
Here's one thing I think the college football playoff did get right. The home games on campus.
I love this.
I think they should, if you're in the playoffs, the game should be on campus until the end.
Till the championship.
Till the championship should be one of the bowl games. And the bowl game should rotate every year. The one year the national championship should be the Rose Bowl, Orange Bowl, whatever bowl is the national championship game for that year. But the game should, like, for instance, if you get a bye, you missed out on having a home playoff game.
You did.
That stinks. Like, if you're Boise State, would you rather the home playoff game?
Oh, you're at the home playoff game. Blue turf, baby.
Exactly. How cool would it be, Boise State, to have, like, Penn State or Notre Dame or Texas or somebody go to Boise?
That'd be wild.
That would be pretty cool for them and the students. That's what it's all about. Now, here's the other question I have. The only thing about these college campuses, there's nobody there right now. The kids are all at home.
I guarantee they will be there.
It's
like feel it. Say you build it, they will come.
I'm interested to see. Like, I know, like, in West Virginia, there's nobody there. There's literally nobody there. When the campus clears out for Christmas break, there is nobody there.
See, what I would do is if I was one of those kids, if I know my team's playing this weekend, I don't leave.
I get that, but I'm saying, like,
I tell my family to bug off. I'm coming home late.
You still have time to get there for, I mean, I think that the colleges got out on Tuesdays, a lot of them, at least locally. I don't know when the colleges let people back. You could stay theoretically, but I think if you live in the dorms, you might have to get out of there by a certain day.
Ooh, that's not a good situation.
So that's the only thing.
Do the schools extend the dorm stays till after the game?
It's possible that they could do something like that. That's a possibility that they could say, hey, if you're staying to go to the playoff game, I don't know how each campus runs, but Hey, listen, that would be awful if your team made the playoffs and you weren't there. You had to go home for Christmas, for God's sakes, boo-hoo. But I think I'd rather stay for the game. Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 2 names out for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll dive into it now for Football at 4 with Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. As we just found out, 2 names will miss the game on Sunday, and both of them kind of interesting for what their roles would have been on Sunday, Adam, as the Eagles made it official that Bryce Huff will not play. He has the 21-day window open. I guess there was some anticipation, and Britton Covey is out again for the game on Sunday. So those 2 are out. Questionable is Sidney Brown. Adam Caplan, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Mike. Happy holidays to everyone. I don't know if we'll talk next week, but nevertheless, Britton Covey will miss his 3rd straight game. He's close because he took a lot. He took the most reps he's taken since he got hurt 4 weeks ago, and it is a neck injury. You can't play unless you're cleared for contact. He's not been cleared to get hit, so I get that part. Now, Bryce Huff is interesting with his situation with coming off the wrist injury and the surgery. What he confirmed was it was not broken. He tore ligaments in his wrist. So the thing was that they had the surgery when they had it so he could come back before the end of the season, which they still expect he'll play either next week or the week after. That's why they started his 21-day clock, Mike, as you mentioned, so he could start working in Thursday's practice, which he did. So, he won't play, and we'll get into the rotation at edge in a couple minutes, but the good news is, now we talked about this on today's Inside the Birds, Mike. No longer could you just assume a guy has a concussion the next week he doesn't play. You could throw that out. That's no longer true, not even close to being true. I tracked this stuff. 3 players last week, week 14, who had concussions played in week 15. And they won Sunday, so they had a concussion Sunday. They play the next week. This happens every week now. Guys are coming back within 7 days, where it used to never happen or rarely happen. So it is happening. Sidney Brown, Mike. The good thing is he took a lot of reps today. He's got to get independent neurologist to clear him, and if so, he only really plays on special teams. But Mike, he's a gunner on special teams. He's really important in that. And by the way, the knee issue that he had that forced him to miss the game a couple weeks ago, that's no longer on the injury report.
Well, let's look at Bryce Huff, because I was not a huge fan of the signing. I wasn't, overly critical. I just wasn't all that excited. To me, I'm looking at a guy who I didn't think was going to make that big of an impact, and he did not. But I am kind of intrigued by what he could add when he comes back. I mean, could he I've been in the locker room, I've been in the film room. I now know this defense a little better. Could he have some impact? I'm a little disappointed to see that he's not ready to play on Sunday. So what kind of role what's his rotation when he returns, hopefully next week?
That's actually a big question. So look, we got to kind of unpack this. So he signed a 3-year, $51 million deal. Okay, the first 2 years are fully guaranteed at $17 million a season, right? So he came in here. When you're being paid $17 million a season, you're starting. There's no debate. There's no discussion. He has to start. Like you sign this contract, you're going to be a full-time starter for the first time in your career. Now, on your point about you weren't high on him to come in here, well, I'm guessing it's because he'd never been a full-time starter before in his career. We actually had his former college head coach Ryan Silverfield from Memphis. And by the way, Memphis just had their bowl game win. They finished in the top 25.
Hey, was that a shot at West Virginia? Come on, man.
No. By the way, I don't know if you saw the game. West Virginia almost pulled the comeback.
I was watching the game. I was watching the game. My man, they just hired Rich Rod. The whole thing is, Rich Rod's back.
Crazy. Yeah, it's crazy. So what Silverfield said, look, he was a late bloomer. No question about it. He was not surprised he wasn't drafted, by the way. He liked Huff. He still stays in touch with him. We had Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl, who, by the way, just interviewed for the vacant Jets general manager job. Jim, this is an unbelievable story. Do you know that Bryce Huff is from Mobile and was not invited to the Senior Bowl?
No. It's the fact, though, his whole story is kind of interesting from where he's come from to get paid like he has. And now, this is a guy, correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, when they signed him, I don't want to say they thought he was going to supplant what Reddick did, but maybe replace that pass rush, get 10, 11, 15, 12 sacks maybe.
Yep. 100%. No, Mike, he was going to replace Reddick. We reported this. We put it on Patreon first when we came back from the Senior Bowl. Our feeling was that there was a very realistic chance Reddick would not be coming back. we didn't have all the full details, but we didn't like what we heard, and we didn't quite know the depth of the Eagles not wanting to extend Reddick's contract, and they targeted Huff. No, we also didn't know about Josh Sweat. When Sweat went on Twitter and said, it's been nice seeing you and all this stuff, people all assumed that Sweat was gone, and he came back. He's having a really good season, by the way. But let's get back to this guy, Bryce Huff. So he didn't play well before he got hurt. He had a couple of good moments where you go, okay, he's starting to progress a little bit. And then what most people don't understand is we want to talk about Nolan Smith before we get out of here. Nolan Smith, who got off to a really bad start and also did not have a good training camp, he actually started cutting to Huff's role around week 6, particularly when they came out of the bye, and he really never looked back. Huff had the injury, the surgery, which he did say he aggravated in in pregame against Jacksonville, which is, by the way, what Vic Fangio confirmed, because Vic has been great with information publicly, by the way. And then, BG gets lost, and Nolan Smith gets thrown in there. And Nolan Smith has been really, really good, improving. But what could Bryce Huff do? Let's roll this out here. Most people don't realize they had a 4-man rotation for about 7 games, and then because of injuries, they went to a 3-man rotation. So they'll have a 4-man rotation. Now the question is, Mike, what do they do with Jalen Hunt? Do they, he is their third edge rusher now because they're not really using Charles Harris. So it's Sweat and Smith are starting. That's not up to debate. What's up to debate is how do you work in Huff with Hunt? Because Greg Cosell told us he's really intrigued with Jalen Hunt's tape, really good against the run, which is interesting because, Mike, remember, he was a safety to start his career in college.
It's another wild story.
Yep, and then he grew 4 to 5 inches and became an edge rusher at a college down south. So they were not – their thought process was more or less – Jalen Hunt would not play much this season, if at all. He'd play on special teams. They didn't really have a role in mind, we were told, for him. And then he got pressed into service, and he's gotten better. It's been a great story of development. But the real story here is the development of Nolan Smith, which I don't want to say came out of nowhere, Mike, but quite frankly, it didn't look like it could happen because the preseason tape was really bad, we were told, and training camp was not very good. That's why, by the way, Brandon Graham outsnapped him for the first 6 games.
Yeah, so they replaced Graham essentially with Hunt, and then does Hunt get supplanted by Huff? We'll see. I guess that was what we would have got a taste of this weekend. They're only going to have 2 weeks, really, if he plays next week, to figure out what kind of role was there. And I'm assuming they're kind of surprised by what they've seen from Jalen Hunt, because I know I am.
I am too, Mike. Now, we had heard behind the scenes that he was starting to progress, week 6, 7, 8. The lights started to go on for him a little bit, and the tape would show it in game. But it's not like he's just developed pass rusher. The thought process when they drafted him is that maybe he'd challenge for a starting job by year 3. That still may happen. But the big story here is Nolan Smith. And as I mentioned earlier here, everything that happened prior to the first 4 or 5 weeks would not give you the belief that he could do anything this season. He didn't do anything as a rookie. And he's just developed so rapidly. It's been a great story. And, Mike, the knock on him from a scouting standpoint was not good hand usage, not very strong, tries to win with speed. When he doesn't win with speed, he doesn't win. So the fact that once he got promoted to full-time starter in week 7, really in front of Huff, and then he just improved in every area. His striking ability. He had that great sack last week against Broderick Jones. Now Broderick Jones, I was told, had bad posture. He didn't angle correctly, but still, Smith stoned him. And this is nothing you could have seen in training camp. He didn't do any of this stuff. So it's just a great story of development. And I know that Nolan Smith. I know a lot of fans were like, this guy can't play in all this, but you can't say it anymore. Mike, not only has his development been good. Now he's in the conversation to start next year, which there was no chance that was in the conversation to start the season. It doesn't mean they won't draft an edge rusher in the first round. It just means if he continues to progress these final 3 games in the playoffs, he's in the conversation to start next year.
Nolan Smith's been great the last couple of weeks. I don't want to say great, maybe very good, but he certainly answered some questions there. Real quick, Britton Covey's out. Are they going to stick with DeJean as the punt returner?
There's been no sign that Ainias Smith, who didn't even play, he was active but did not play. There's been no indication, though Ainias at Texas A&M did return punts. We saw him in training camp do it. Remember, he was out with, he had 2 different foot injuries in 2024. There've been no indication that they were going to change this, but that would be the only guy. Rogers is a kickoff returner. Shipley's a kickoff returner. And Kenny Gainwell, by the way, is a kickoff returner. We had a nice kickoff return last week. So, look, that was not good. And Michael Clay talked about it. The ball security has to be better from Cooper DeJean. Yeah. But again, there's not been any indication that they're willing to change it right now. I know Vic Fangio would love them to change it.
Well, mine's more
he controls everything else. So he by the way, he has total autonomy. By the way, to do whatever he wants on defense. Just so you're aware of that whatever he wants to do, he does.
And mine's not almost the fumble. He did have the 22-yard. I thought he had a big punt return later. I just don't want to see the guy get hurt. That's all.
I agree with you, Mike. You and I are wearing the same hat. we were right about what we talked about Hurts going in last week's game. We both said he's capable of doing it. Will he do it? We had no idea. Well, he did it. Hurts put it on tape. That was great, and we'll take it against Washington in Landover, Maryland on Sunday.
All right, let's look at Washington real quick and get a couple of thoughts. Eagles, Commanders. Give me some of. They played 4 weeks ago. What are some of the challenges the second time around?
The Eagles felt like the run defense was pretty solid. They had some runs. The thing was Eckler got them in the past game. Eckler's out for the season. He's on IR with a concussion, but they don't really have that back that really could get them because he had a number of catches against the Eagles. Now, don't forget that Daniels, the rookie quarterback who was really rebounded from that game, he didn't play well against the Eagles. He had a rib injury, Mike. He didn't look right. But somehow the Commanders were up heading into the fourth quarter. Then the Eagles ran all over them. That's coming, Mike. Now, it's going to be 30 degrees at kickoff and throughout the game. Wind won't be bad. You could throw in that weather. I will be interested to see 5 of the first 6 called plays last week were passes. They hadn't done that in several weeks. I'm very curious if we'll come out passing in this game. You can run against Washington. They're not a good run defense. Jonathan Allen was not cleared to play, by the way. He's got a partial pectoral tear. That's why he's able to practice. He didn't have a full tear. If he had a full tear, he definitely would be coming back. Remember what the Eagles completely shut down Terry McLaurin that game. So that was amazing. Now, their defensive front's really good. They're very active. They will blitz. They do bring some heat. They've improved in the secondary. Sainristil, their rookie corner, really, he's going to be their nickel corner. He's going to be the nickel back, I should say, like Fangio says, at some point going forward, because Marshawn Lattimore played his first game for them last week and played pretty well. Eventually, they're going to move Sainristil to nickel, but he's a guy that's played very, very well. This should be a tight game. I don't see a blowout here at all.
No, it was close last time. People forget they were winning here in Philadelphia, and then you had the big run by Saquon Barkley, who's had, this is the opponent that he has beaten up on more than any other team in his career. He averages more scrimmage yards against Washington than any other team in football. So it was a big run by Barkley that bailed him out last week. Are they going to need something like that again this week? We'll see. A.J. Brown said he's playing, but banged up. Barkley last week, he left. The battle of attrition. You don't want to start losing guys here.
Yeah, how about Barkley not on the injury report for an injury? He just had rest. Now, A.J. Brown did confirm today. It did not, he felt fine, he said, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Thursday, he was feeling something. So they had to add him to the injury report. And now he did kind of hint that it was from the game, but he just didn't feel it till Thursday. Now, he also was listed with an injury with a knee issue several weeks ago. He also missed time, as you know, Mike, with that crazy walk-through hamstring injury. So you got to watch this. You're right, Mike. This is a long season. And then AJ, the media kind of goaded him a little, but he finally let it fly about the Thursday practice. Thursday practices, Mike, for a Sunday game are always the longest in the National Football League. And the Eagles have a long Thursday practice, and he was smiling when he said it. I listened to the interview. But I love listening to him talk, by the way. If folks have never heard it. Sometimes he tries to be a little standoffish, but then he smiles and laughs and he lets it fly. It's a pretty good interview today.
All right, Adam Caplan from the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, and, of course, right here for Football at 4 on the Sports Bash, at Caplan NFL. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you.
All right, there's Adam Caplan on this Friday edition of the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, let's get you some nuggets before Nick's Nuggets gets here. Couple things. Number one, the Eagles can clinch the NFC East with a win against the Commanders. If they win the NFC East for the second time in 3 years. It would be, again, the 20th straight season in the NFC East that there is no repeat champion. It's the longest streak for any division in NFL history. The Eagles, a 10-game win streak, the longest in franchise history, the second longest win streak of any team this season. If the Eagles win this week, they will tie the Lions for 11 straight wins. We know the Eagles won this game 26-18 in Philly back in Week 11. Did you know Philly is 6-1 against the Commanders in their last 7 meetings? It feels like the Commanders have kind of knocked them off. They've just been kind of a pain in the butt more than anything. We told you A.J. Brown last week, 8 catches, 110, 11 targets. It's a season high in receptions, the most yards since Week 6, and it's a season high in targets for A.J. Brown last week against Pittsburgh. He has 946 receiving yards. He's seeking his 3rd straight season with Philadelphia with 1,000 yards or more, which would be tied for most in Eagles history. Can you name the other 3, Josh?
Are they all wide receivers?
Well, that was the question.
Well, you could say receiver, but it could be a tight end.
The receivers.
Okay. I would guess
This
Mike
would be
Quick.
Yes, if he has 3 straight 1,000-yard reception receiving yards, it would be tied for the most in Eagles history with
Mike Quick.
He's 1.
Harold Carmichael.
He's 2.
Oh, boy. Who's the 3rd one? Let me see here. Because I was just writing about Zach Ertz, so I was wondering if Zach Ertz would be on this list.
I think he only had 1,000-yard season.
Did he? Okay. My 3rd guess.
He might not even have that. I think his biggest year was 9. He had the record for receptions. I don't know about yards.
Yeah. 3rd receiver. You said 3 straight?
Mm-hmm. 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons.
Oh,
actually, not straight. 3rd season with 1,000. So this guy,
3 altogether.
He might not have had 3 straight, but he had 3 different 1,000 yards.
Oh, Deshaun Jackson. See, the straight caught me because I knew he had that 1 year where he didn't get 1,000 yards because of an injury.
Commanders clinch a playoff berth with a win and an Atlanta loss, plus a Ram loss, plus a Seattle loss.
How do you think Michael Penix is going to do against the Giants?
No idea, but I think against the Giants. Now that I didn't realize they were playing the Giants. Yeah, I think he's going to have a good week. Commanders are 1-3 this year versus teams with a winning record. Not good.
No.
Washington is seeking their first 10-win season since 2012. Longest active drought without a 10-win season in the entire league.
RG3.
12 years ago. Almost 13 years ago. Jeez.
Yeah.
Jaden Daniels, 3,045 passing yards, 656 rushing yards. He's one of 2 players this season with 3,000 yards passing and 500 rushing yards. Lamar Jackson is the other.
It's pretty good company.
Good company here. He's one of 4 rookies in NFL history with 3,000 yards passing and 500 yards rushing. All 3 won the Offensive Player Rookie of the Year. They were?
Lamar Jackson.
1.
Cam Newton.
That is not correct.
Darn it.
I don't think Lamar started as a rookie.
So not Lamar.
No.
Cam Newton.
Lamar's the one now.
Okay.
Cam Newton is 1.
Cam Newton's 1.
2011, Cam Newton.
Michael Vick.
That is incorrect.
Vince Young.
Nope.
I give up.
Kyler Murray in 2019 and RG3
I should have guessed
in
RG3.
2012. Couple Harry McLaurin numbers for you. 11 touchdowns this year, second most in the NFL. Jamar Chase is number 1. He's 1 touchdown shy of the most touchdowns in a season in Commanders history.
In a single season?
Yep.
Oh, boy. Who would be the receiving leader of all time? Would that be Art Monk?
3 guys, he would be tied.
He'd be tied with Art Monk?
Art Monk is not on this list.
Dagnabbit. I should be better at this. Now, see, I'm going to do Washington trivia tonight so I can be better at this next time.
Yeah, these names you're not going to get.
Maybe like Santana Moss?
Nope.
All right, what is it?
Ricky Sanders has 12 touchdowns. Jerry Smith has 12 touchdowns. Charlie Taylor has 12 touchdowns. And Hugh Taylor has 12 touchdowns. Going back to 1952, McLaurin has 11. He would tie the record. His 969 receiving yards this year, it's 7 most in the NFL. He's seeking his 5th career season with over 1,000 yards, and that would be tied for the most in Commanders franchise history. That would be Art Monk.
There's that Armand.
There you go.
I found him.
So there's some stats and some figures and some nuggets, if you will, going into this one. I know our boy Phil wanted to hear some betting trends for this game. You want a couple nuggets on the betting trends for the Eagles and the Commanders. Here you go. A couple things to keep in mind. By the way, right now, the favorites entering this week for Offensive Player of the Year is Saquon Barkley, and Defensive Rookie of the Year is Quinyon Mitchell, and Offensive Rookie of the Year is Jaden Daniels. So you have 3 players to win some major awards. By the way, Josh Allen is minus 900 right now to win the MVP award. Let's get you some little betting nuggets on this game, if you will. Here we go. The Eagles are 6-1 outright and against the spread on the road this season. They have 5 straight wins and covers. You like that number?
I'm very liking that man. Yeah, very intrigued.
They are 5-1 against the spread in their last 6 games. The Commanders are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 games.
That game in New Orleans didn't help that number.
The Eagles are 5-1 outright and against the spread against teams with winning records this season. They're 4-0 outright and against the spread in their last 4. The Commanders are 0-4 outright against teams with winning records, 1-3 against the spread. Now, if you want one number to take the Commanders, they're 10-3 against the spread in the first quarter of games this season. That's the best in the NFL. The Eagles are the worst. They are 3-11. 3 straight Eagles games have gone under the total, and 3 straight Commanders home games have gone over the number. The Eagles are 12-3 against the spread against Washington in their last 15 meetings.
I know Joe Fortenbaugh and Joe versus Carlin always talks about betting against the Eagles in the first quarter,
right?
And not the rest of the game, he says.
Hey, let me tell you about my friends at the Nizam's Indian Restaurant, Route 40 in Egg Harbor Township. They're ready to serve you delicious Indian dishes, and you can check out their Eagles football special. Free tandoori spicy chicken wings. The week the Eagles win for dine-in customers only. They're ranked the number 2 best restaurant in all of New Jersey. South Jersey's best Indian restaurant serves authentic food from different parts of South Asia, serving the best delicacies that will satisfy your taste buds. Open 7 days a week. They're open right now till 9:30 every night. Special lunch buffet on Sundays from 11:30 to 3. Get over there before the Eagles take on Washington. And then after the win, go back for those free tandoori spicy chicken wings. Check out their full menu at thenizams.com for more information. When we come back, there's your Eagles Commanders updates. We have Nick's Nuggets on the other side. Nicky Nuggets is in the house. Coming up next. All right, 429 holiday season for you here on the Sports Bash Happy Hour Friday. I have Happy Hour Friday picks for you guys out there. I didn't forget you, 609-403-0973. It's time for another edition of Nick's Nuggets here on the Sports Bash. Nick Earnshaw is host of the Shift Podcast and, of course, The Locker Room. Weekends on 97.3 ESPN, and he joins me now for another edition of Nick's Nuggets on the Sports
What's
Bash.
going on,
Now, I want a
Mike?
festive
How are you?
edition. I want a festive edition of Nick's Nuggets. I don't want any gloom and doom. I think you're going to be bringing me gloom and doom. Are you going to bring gloom and doom here today?
Absolutely. That's my job today, especially after last night and the box of coal that the Phillies got us with that signing. I mean, unbelievable. Max Kepler, by the way, the Phillies just made it official. Max Kepler signed on a 1-year deal, Mike. So that deal is now official, and that's where we start. Nugget number one. I want to keep it festive. I want to. I would have loved to, but I can't do it. I can't do it with this signing. I don't love this. I thought that he's an average outfielder. It reminds me of Austin Hayes 2.0. We had a whole nugget on Santander yesterday, Mike. I would take Santander over Max Kepler any day. I mean, to say the least, that's where I'd be at. But Kepler, I mean, listen, he had an okay 2023. Like, he was decent that year. Fine. Like, those are the numbers you want him to have. But last year, not great. Not a great year for him. Batted 253 overall, 8 home runs, 93 hits, 1.0 WAR. I don't know. This signing's not enough. And it's not a slam dunk signing. They have to go out and make a trade. They've talked about trying to trade Alec Boehm, which I don't think is a great idea. And, the Ranger Suarez thing you and I have talked about, it's been floated out there because of the Scott Boras thing. But how much value are they going to be able to get back for a Ranger Suarez at this point? But Max Kepler, really, that's the only thing, the only player, the only move they could make at this point in the offseason. I was very disappointed with that signing. And it's not a Merry Christmas if you're a Phillies fan with that signing.
No, I can't say I have a lot of positive here. I mean, I was willing to try to be like, well, a couple of years ago he did have 36 home runs, but other than that, I mean, there's not a lot of positives here. It doesn't make sense to me at all. Couple reasons. One, left-handed bat. Two, never played left field. Now, that doesn't mean he can't play left field. I will say he is a very good outfielder. Really good arm, a good right fielder, but he's been primarily a right fielder. In fact, he's played over 930 games in right field. He's played some games in center. He has never played left field. So this one just doesn't make a lot of sense. Another left-handed guy. The only thing I can maybe see is, hey, did they get some calls on Brandon Marsh that maybe opened their eyes a little bit and they said, hey, if we're going to lose Marsh, we want to get a left-handed bat to replace him. I just don't get this one at all. And it's not like this is a cheap guy. 1 year's $10 million tells me they intend to play this guy. Like, he's a guy that they look at and say, yeah, he's a part of the plans. Like, I'll be honest with you, I would have just said keep Austin Hayes and give him another shot with a right-handed bat at least, as opposed to bringing in a left-handed bat who plays primarily right field.
Yeah, I'm the same way. Like, I don't the Austin Hayes move now confuses me. You brought in essentially the same type of player. $10 million is not a guy that you're going to keep on the bench. That's the problem. Like, you're not going to put that guy on the bench. You could platoon a $10 million player, but that's a lot of money for a Max Kepler who at this point in his career, it's 31 years of age. He spent his entire career in Minnesota. The OPS isn't there. He's an okay player. He's a great defender, great in the field. That's fine. But this wasn't the type of offseason we were expecting out of the Phillies. Listen, they can't run it back. They have to make some type of move here. This was very underwhelming, very disappointing from Dave Dombrowski. With the way last season ended, you thought, all right, they're going to shake things up a little bit, especially in the outfield with how difficult it's been. Platooning guys in left, center field. Like, Rojas can give you a lot in the field, but can't really give you anything at the dish. Like, you thought maybe they'd switch things up out there in the outfield, and this has just caused more problems. And it reminds me, it goes back. What about Bryce Harper? Why can't he move to right field? Why couldn't you move him to right field And I think that issue right there with Harper moving to first base has caused a lot of their issues, especially in the way they have developed a lineup at this point and in the outfield.
Hey, listen, it's a great point. It's not happening, though. They're not moving him back to the outfield. I mean, that is, to me, not something that is going to happen. I could see but they're not doing it. I mean, if they were going to do it, they have so many more options to fill the first base spot with a right-handed bat. Yes, it makes sense, but it's not something they have even discussed or thought about. I think it's more about leaving about keeping him healthier long-term. And for whatever reason, they think playing first base, he's the best asset they have. So they think him playing first base will extend his career. I can't blame them for that, but yes, they could go after Pete Alonso and put him at first base. Reese Hoskins could have been a guy. They obviously are not exploring that idea at all.
No, they won't. And the Pete Alonso thing would be funny, especially if he came to Philadelphia. You know, the Phillies fans have not been fans of Pete Alonso. I'm shocked he still hasn't signed with the Mets. That's very curious. Christian Walker now signs with the Houston Astros. He'll play first base there, going from the Arizona Diamondbacks. You know, you heard the Yankees, you heard the Mets maybe in on him. That could tell me that Pete Alonso goes back to first base for the Mets. But yeah, it just makes you wonder. There's not a ton, and we talked about Santander yesterday, in the outfield right now that's available as a free agent. So if they were to make a big splash, make a major move, it's going to come via trade. I mean, that's essentially where they're at this point in the offseason. Yeah, Bregman's still out there, but you still have Alec Bohm. You can't move Alec Bohm to first base. Are you going to trade him? Like, what's going to happen there? They can't get a deal done to trade Alec Bohm. They've tried to, and then they come out and they say they haven't tried to trade him. But, you know, that's where it is.
I will say this. There's a lot of time left between now. Actually, I say a lot. Pitchers and catchers report, I believe, on February 11th. So you do still have one full month. Remember, the Phillies signed Bryce Harper in March the year. Now, he was the highest level of free agent. Yeah. There's not really that guy out there. But there are still things to do, trades to be made, things that can happen. But you're right, this has not gotten off to a great start. And adding Max Kepler is certainly not going to be something that's going to push the pile. The only thing I could say is in 6 games at Citizens Bank Park, he has 4 home runs and a .955 slug.
You know, in 4 games, that's going to tell me everything I need to know, Mike. He's going to be a star.
6 games. Sorry, 6 games.
6 games. That's going to tell me everything. He's going to be an absolute star. I'm just kidding. I wouldn't get too excited about this signing if I were a Phillies fan. They need to do more. Still a little bit of time left after the holidays. Maybe we'll get a nice, surprise through the new year and Christmas and everything going on. Maybe that'll happen at some point. But we'll see. Max Kepler officially signs with the Phillies. Just came out a few minutes ago. All right, moving along. Nugget number 2, Mike. Now this grind my gears heading into this week. So we know that the NFL and their players like to, show off their cleats a lot, right? They do the My Claws, My Cleats a lot as well, giving to charity, whatever it may be. And we know A.J. Brown wears pink cleats. Jalen Hurts wore 2 different shades of green on Sunday in his cleats. He got fined over $5,000 for it not being the right shade of green by the NFL. He got fined for this, Mike. Unbelievable. Yep. And I want to go back. I don't know if you saw, the NFL actually tweeted out Jalen Hurts' cleats last week before the game. They tweeted out, the NFL's account tweeted out of the cleats, a picture of him in the cleats, whatever. It was like a shade of Kelly green, a shade of the midnight green, and they tweeted it out with a caption. And now if you go back and try and find that tweet, it says this tweet has been deleted. So the NFL's account promoted this and then fined the guy. And then, but apparently a good part of this is the holiday season. We'll give it back, a holiday cheer. The Jordan brand, who Jalen Hurts is signed to, is going to pay the fine.
Yeah, this is the ultimate. Listen, the NFL has been doing this for years with the no fun league in terms of the uniform police that come out on the field and, check everybody's uniforms to make sure that they are up to standards. But for them to tweet it out, the return of Jalen 2 shoes and then fine them for wearing the two shoes. Listen, without rules, there is chaos. So stick to your guns, NFL, and fine his ass. I'm all right with it.
You're all right with fining him? Who cares? Why are the priorities on Jalen Hurts' shoes? We're finding him. We got to just ink out every dollar we can. Are we serious?
Without rules, there's chaos in this world. This is why the world has gone to bleep in a handbasket here. Follow the damn rules and we won't have these problems.
No, I'm all for the rule breakers. I hope Jalen wears those cleats again. They fine him again because the Jordan Brand is going to pay for it again. I hope he doesn't, because the fact that priorities are worried about a different shade of green.
Yeah, I think it's I think it's preposterous. But no, I joke about the rules. But still, I mean, listen, if you let him go, the next thing you know, you're going to see guys. Like, I think one of the worst things about the NBA right now, I mean, have some pride in your team. You got guys wearing electric green shoes with blue uniforms. Have some pride in your team. Wear the color sneakers of the jersey and the uniforms. These guys wear sneakers that don't match the uniform. That drives me insane. I'm not saying that everybody has to wear the same sneaker. You know, this isn't like the 1986 Celtics that all wear, black cons. But at least wear the color of the sneaker of the uniform if you're going to wear. I can't stand these guys that wear, like, fluorescent yellow shoes with red jerseys. It's awful. It's an awful look. Do better. Have pride in the team.
See, I totally disagree. I think you should wear any shoe you want, NFL, NBA, show off a little creativity, okay? It doesn't need to match the uniform. The shoes, who cares? Uniform's different. The jersey, the shorts, whatever, the headband should match. But the idea
headband should match.
Yeah, the headband should match. That's different.
The sneaker, no, but the headband? The sneaker, no, but the headband?
Yeah. Yes, headband should match. White, black, blue, red, whatever. It doesn't matter. That should match. But the sneaker should show creativity. I like some brightness, the colors. I love that A.J. Brown wears pink so his daughter could see him on television. I think that's fantastic. There's all these reasons. I mean, the NFL does the my cause, my cleats. They're really worried about cleats at this point as a different shade. This wasn't the case this week. But we're gonna fine a guy for not having the right cleats on, or the right shade of green. I mean, we're getting a little ridiculous with that type of stuff. But
I think NBA, that I'm not
NBA wear everything you want.
No, they look. It's ridiculous. I mean, have some team pride. Have some pride in the uniform. You're wearing a sneaker that doesn't match your uniform. Have some pride in yourself and your uniform. Jalen Hurts at least matched. He had green on. He had the color of his team. So therefore, that's why I'm like, hey, at least it was uniform to the color of his team. He didn't have one pink one and one blue one on. He had two green-colored cleats. Yes, they were different shades. So, yes, that one's a little ridiculous. But my gripe with these NBA guys is, listen, wear a pair of sneakers that matches the uniforms, please. You look ridiculous out there.
No, I will defy the Mike Gill rules of wearing the sneakers. Different shades. I don't even care. I would do two different color shoes if I could.
Would you go out like that?
Yeah.
So you would go out in public. You're going out in public wearing orange sneakers with.
I have. See, when I ran track in college, okay, I had bright blue and neon spikes for running hurdles, and my color, my uniform was all white and like navy blue. But I wore bright blue and bright green as my spikes.
You just said it, though. The main color of the uniform was white, so that matches with everything. I'm talking about these guys, when you're watching, I'm saying the Sixers just because they wear blue some nights. And then you got Tyrese Maxey wearing electric green shoes. I'm like, come on, dude, seriously, have some pride in the team. This is what's been lost in sports, is the team pride and the fact that, hey, the sneaker and everything, it all comes. When we were playing basketball in school, you used to say, all right, what sneaker are we all getting this year? You used to come together to order the same sneaks so we look the same.
Nah, I don't. The individuality on the sneakers, especially with how many cool sneakers there are out there, and basketball shoes. Yeah, I want you to get your own. Do you like Do you like Jordans? Do you like Kobe's? Do you like LeBron's?
That's what I said. I don't mind if you wear a different style of sneak than your teammate. I'm not saying you have to wear the same. Not everybody has to wear the same one, but at least make them the same color.
No, color can be totally different for NBA. I'm with that. Now, I will ask you this. Should the NBA make coaches wear suits again? I think that should come back. I'm a big quarter zip guy, but I think that should come back.
No. I don't. Why would an NBA coach need to wear a suit? He's not selling insurance. What am I buying from this guy? In fact, I think the suit overall is an outdated entity. You wear a suit, you look dated.
Wow.
Yeah, we went to a wedding the other day.
You look fashionable.
No, you look like an old man is what you look like. You look like an old man. In life, everything has evolved. We haven't found a different outfit to supplant the suit.
No, I am out on you. Listen, we have some similar fashion tastes. We're big quarter zip guys. But you want to be styling, profiling, and wear a nice suit. I think they should bring the suits back. Remember, Craig Sager would wear the suits on the sideline. He'd have the crazy one going. Bring a little fashion with the suits back. I think they should have suits on the sideline of an NBA court. I think the NBA, they are the coaches of the team. They're the leaders of the team. I think they should be brought back, not the quarter zip. It's just, it looks, I feel like you should look more professional as the coach. I think that was cool. I think we should have managers
so the coach
go
should wear
back
a
to the
suit while he's coaching guys wearing two different colored sneakers. That makes a lot of sense.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. That's how it should go.
Right, yeah. I'm wearing a suit and tie, and this guy's got on a pink and neon green sneaker. No thanks.
Absolutely. That's what I think should happen, and they should bring back the suits for the coaches, and you should wear whatever shoe you want. And they should also bring back the headbands that you tie behind your head, too, that Jimmy Butler used to wear. But that's neither here nor there. All right, final segment of the Nuggets here. I wanted to talk about this thing from yesterday. And it came out yesterday about Woody Johnson, a little New York Times story, Diana Rossini. Now, there was Joe Douglas, who is formerly now of the Jets, was fired as well. He tried making a trade for Jerry Jeudy, Mike. And because of his, I believe it was his grandsons or sons, whatever it was from Woody Johnson, who was in relation to him. I believe it was his grandson. They play Madden, okay? And because the Madden rating wasn't up to snuff for Woody Johnson, he nixed the Jerry Jeudy trade. What do you make of an NBA owner utilizing Madden to make a trade, Mike?
I don't even know where to go with this, really. I mean, to really think that – I don't even know that I can believe that this is accurate, right? Am I supposed to really believe – this is how dumb it is, that if this is accurate, that I can't even believe this. Like, that's how egregious it would be to have – now, I will say – the grandson or the son or whoever it was of the guy, Joe Shane, he was the one, or the daughter. Wasn't she the one that said that he should draft Jaden Daniels?
Yeah, that was his son. That was Joe Shane's son.
So maybe we should be listening to these things.
I don't know. He nixed the trade because of the Madden rating. But isn't the owner, I mean, listen, as much as, Jeffrey Lurie has a say, he lets Howie Roseman do his job. Woody Johnson has been known to just be involved way too much in some of these decisions here. And the fact he was listening to his kids because of a rating in Madden for Jerry Jeudy, I mean, that's a little ridiculous. I mean, he's going to be over 1,000 yards this year.
Couple things. One, the Jets didn't need Jerry Jeudy because they have enough talent. The fact that we're looking back at this whole problem is how bad their season has actually gone. That's number one. Number two, the fact that they looked at his Madden rating and said, I'm not taking this guy. Who did you compare it to? Look at the other guy. I mean, you have Alan Lazard. I mean, his Madden rating, what was that?
That's what I mean. It just doesn't make any sense that they would go with the Madden rating. Like, no. Let your football people handle the football side and the development and how good a guy is. Jerry Jeudy's a pretty good receiver. He's had a good year in Cleveland, even though, the Cleveland's an utter disaster as well. He's been very good for them this year. But this is before they made the trade for Devontae Adams. So that's where I'm like, you could have Jerry Jeudy and Garrett Wilson. I don't know. I could have made maybe a little bit of difference. Who knows? They're a mess, but I just feel bad for Jets fans. This is another reason they can't stand Woody Johnson as their owner.
Yeah, that's a bad story, man. If that's an actual accurate, now it's Diana Rossini. I mean, now listen, I will say the whole thing with Big Dom and Jay Glazer, that proved to be false too.
That was false too. So who knows anymore? I mean, at this point, what's true and what's not. But a lot coming out from the inside of the New York Jets, Philadelphia Eagles. Been a fun couple of days here in the reporting world of the sports.
There you go. By the way, I got some breaking news for you.
Oh, what's that?
Yeah, you ready?
I'm ready.
This email just in to the Sports Bash.
Oh, my goodness.
Sports Bash has been approved for this year's Radio Row at Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans.
How about that? We're going down to the Super Bowl. Going to be a lot of fun.
Hot off the press, man. Just came in. So the Sports Bash will be live in New Orleans for this year's Radio Row. We will be there for 3 shows, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I think the New Orleans, now last year we were in Vegas for the for Radio Row. And this year New Orleans will be the host town for this shindig. We got a big crew going down there this year, and we're hoping that while we're there, the Eagles will be there with us. We'll be there regardless if the Eagles are there or not, but we're hoping that we'll for the for the third time, Radio Row will be Philadelphia Eagles. So we were in Minnesota with the Eagles. We were in Phoenix with the Eagles, and hopefully we can make it New Orleans with the Eagles.
Be a lot of fun. Was there just a couple of months ago in September in the Superdome when the Eagles took on the Saints. So hopefully another trip down there. It'll be my second Eagles game of the year. Could be.
Nice. Well, listen, Knicks Nuggets is always here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. We've got so much more to go. Sal Paolantinio next hour. Before we get out of here, yeah, it's been a wild couple of, you look at all these stories with the Jets stuff. They had that story. Then you had the story about Woody Johnson. The quarterback slammed his helmet and said, yeah, you should slam your helmet because you suck. I mean, what kind of stories are these things, man? But
the Jets.
Yeah, the Jets is right. All right, man, good Nuggets.
All right, I'll talk to you, Mike.
All right, Knicks Nuggets here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, and live video streaming on the X platform and on YouTube and on Instagram at Mike Gill Show. Follow along. Be a part of the show. We'd like to have you with us in any way you can. You can watch us, stream us, listen on the free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. We got big stuff happening tonight here on 97.3 ESPN and on our sister station, Rock 104.1. Coming up, college football playoffs, Indiana at Notre Dame. That's on 97.3 ESPN as the college football playoffs begin tonight in South Bend. Snow all over the place. Should be a great atmosphere in South Bend. Sixers, Hornets, and we'll have to get some updates if Joel Embiid is going to play tonight or not. I know that he was at practice, and if you heard what Andre Drummond said, he said, yeah, he looked good to me. Looked like he was ready to go to me. And then he kind of was like, well, I don't want to say that I'm the one who's like, you know what I mean? But so we'll see if Joel's out there. Now, the Hornets are missing 2 key players. Could that mean if they are out 2 key players that the Sixers give Joel another night to kind of get himself ready? We'll see. All right, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. This hour of the show brought to you by Jersey Cow. Ice cream is a year-round thing at Jersey Cow with 2 locations to serve you, Brigantine and in Northfield. They're open year-round, 7 days a week. You can check them out every day from noon to 10 in Northfield and in Brigantine. Ice cream's a year-round thing at Jersey Cow. Don't forget, tomorrow we have Penn State and SMU at noon, followed by the NFL, Steelers, and the Ravens. And then we bring you to the Horseshoe, Ohio State and Tennessee. It's a college football deuce and an NFL single on a Saturday on 97.3 ESPN. By the way, tomorrow night the Flyers will be on our sister station, Rock 104.1. All right, 5 o'clock on a Friday. It's a Sal Pal Friday here on the Sports Bash. I'm Mike Gill. We got so much more to dive into here on the show. We gave you the Friday 5 earlier today. We got the Happy Hour Friday. And now it's a Sal Pal Friday on the Sports Bash. Sal Paolantinio, ESPN, will join us to take a look at the big matchup. Eagles-Commanders. You know, the last time they made the playoffs the same year was 1992. If the Commanders win, they take a step towards making that happen again. If they lose, they could have two teams chasing them from the backside. We'll see how it all unfolds down in Washington and right here on 97.3 ESPN. ESPN National NFL correspondent Sal Paolantinio, he was on the call on ESPN Radio's broadcast of the Eagles and the Steelers. And Sal Pal, the Eagles dominated that game against the Steelers, but they did it in a way we really haven't seen this year. They threw the ball all over the yard. Were you surprised from your broadcast perch on what you were watching?
Well, happy holidays. Merry Christmas to you, Mike Gill, and everybody on the Sports Bash and your great radio station, and, of course, the Johnny G and the Griner team, Ocean City, New Jersey. Thank you for all their support here all year long. And I think everybody was happy. I don't think people were surprised. The word was out that they had to fix the passing game. We heard all week that they were going to practice on fixing the passing game, and they came out and started throwing the ball to A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. You know, and throwing it against the Pittsburgh Steelers is not easy to do. But they wore that Steelers defense down, Mike Gill, and demoralized them in a way that I've never seen a Steelers team demoralized.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the week because they sent the big gun into Philly last week. Sal Pal was on hand all week long in Philly, so the mothership thought it was a big enough deal to send you in there to find out what was going on with what A.J. Brown said the week before. Did it feel all cleared up by the end of the week, and this thing is now ready to take another big step forward?
I think it is cleared up, Mike. I really do. I'm not sure the extent of the personal detachment. I won't even use the word animosity because I don't think there was animosity. I think there was sort of a detachment on a football level. But to me, I think they fixed it clearly. I don't think any of it is phony. I think it's true that they have talked it out. They said they did. They all talked about the fact that they had awkward and hard conversations and difficult conversations with one another. And what does that suggest? That suggests that they had stuff to iron out. You don't have difficult and awkward and tough conversations between your teammates or your coworkers unless you have stuff to iron out. So clearly they had to talk it out, and they did. And I think the results were overwhelmingly positive in that game in the way in which they manhandled the Steelers. And this week I was just there. I just left Novacare, just got off the Walt Whitman Bridge. You're down in Ocean Casino, and I'm on the Walt Whitman Bridge. That was funny. I was listening to you. I could get you a little bit, Mike, as I was rolling into New Jersey. And I was at Novacare today, and they worked hard in practice today. They really did. I mean, if you listen to Nick Sirianni's comments today, he said, I hope we have a good day of practice. I hope we have a great day of practice.
He was very short today, it looked like, early.
Oh, yes, very laser focused. In fact, just to give you a little inside baseball, we asked to interview Nick Sirianni for a piece that we did on the defense today that's running on Sunday NFL Countdown. It's going to be a really good piece. And he was too busy to talk to us one-on-one, and that's normal on a Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I get it. It's completely normal. And I said to the PR department, well, here's some questions that I'm going to ask in the press conference. And when he's given a heads up like that, or any head coaches, they go into some specifics or, you know, they kind of lay out the answer in a way to suggest they thought about it. Sirianni was having none of it. It was all business, the entire press conference. I think he was just, I don't know, I'm going to speculate, Mike. I would just wonder if he was not happy with practice this week in any way, shape, or form, and maybe just wanted to say, we got to lock it down. But Friday is their intense practice. That's their red zone practice. And it's particularly important to play Jaden Daniels and the Commanders. Cliff Kingsbury in that offense, they're very, very good in the red zone. Jaden Daniels has the most rushing yards in the red zone of any quarterback.
Well, a lot of the questions
– Not named Jalen Hurts.
Right. I want to get into them in a minute because a lot of the questions in this press conference that looked like were A.J. Brown related, and he didn't seem like he was all that interested in discussing A.J. Brown or any potential injury there because he did open up a little bit more, particularly the questions you asked about the defense, Vic Fangio, the ways that defense has grown, which I think is interesting because right now when we look at the Eagles, they have all the star power on offense, but is this team led by their defense?
It's led by their defense. If you go on my Instagram, Sal Pal ESPN, Sal Pal ESPN on Instagram, Mike, I point out that since week six, since basically 2 weeks after they fixed the defense during the bye after getting bum rushed by the Bucs down in Tampa, since week 6, this is important. The Eagles lead the NFL since week 6 in points allowed, yards allowed, passing yards allowed, sacks, forced fumbles, and 3 and outs. That is basically the royal flush. You're in the casino. There's a royal flush for you, Mike Gill, in NFL defensive statistics. That's how you win 10 games in a row. I mean, you're up and down on the offense. You're running the ball. You're throwing the ball. There's kumbaya. There's acrimony, whatever it is. That's been the one constant is Vic Fangio and building that defense. And remember, they were 28th in the league, Mike. 28th. And now they're first in the league. That's how you win 10 in a row.
Yeah. Well, and, you know, it's funny. We've been kind of talking all year, you, me, and everybody out there. Do they have the pass rusher? Do they have that guy? Here we are in week 15, 16. They have the best defense in the league for the most part, statistically speaking. Are we convinced that their pass rush can take them to the promised land? You know, I was laughing. I just got my email from New Orleans. We'll be there at 59 in New Orleans, whether the Eagles make it or not. But is that pass rush enough to have them accompany us to New Orleans?
Yeah, I think, you know, the question marks have been somewhat answered. We'll see. I think the thing about it is Jalen Carter. So Jalen Carter has played in 84% of the snaps. That's more than Fletcher Cox ever played. That's more than all defensive linemen in the NFC. He's number one. 84% of the snaps. Mike, he played 48% of the snaps last year. 48. And it's due to the conditioning program that Vic Fangio instituted right from the get-go. It was all about conditioning. And they finished poorly last year. They ran out of gas. And this team is in shape to finish the deal. Now, Carter, believe it or not, so he's played 772 snaps. He's been double-teamed 272 times, more than any other defensive lineman in the league. So when my stats guy gave me that this morning, I said to him, not facetiously, but most sincerely, how many times was he held this year? Give me that number. I want to know the number. How many times was he held, and how many times was holding actually called?
That's good. That's a good pull there because we were talking earlier about, you know, when we think about great defenses, you generally think of the star edge rusher. But Chris Jones, Kansas City, Aaron Donald with the Rams, there have been interior guys who have been the stars of some of these defenses. And I wonder if, you know, the way Carter ended last year has not allowed us to think that he can be the star of a defense. Is he the star of the defense?
Yes, he is. I think it's two people. I think it's Jalen Carter and Quinyon Mitchell. And what Mitchell has done, and you saw it in the Thursday night game against Washington, so unbelievably completely, he takes away your number one wide receiver. Terry McLaurin in that game had 2 targets for 1 catch because he was erased. He found himself in the Q zone, the twilight zone of defensive backs. You know, where wide receivers go to disappear. This is the new version of Revis Island. It's the Q zone. And, you know, not for nothing, Mike, on this show and everybody who will have me on, I have been saying Quinyon Mitchell is your defensive Rookie of the Year.
Well, he's
Not
the favorite
Jared
now.
Verse.
He's the favorite now. He took over.
I heard that.
Yep. Speaking of favorites, right now, you take a look at the Super Bowl favorites. We're talking about, is this team a Super Bowl team or not? You take a look at those Super Bowl favorites, and right now, plus 375 Philadelphia. The Bills, they're the favorite, plus 375. The Eagles are plus 400. Have the Eagles jumped over Detroit, and is Minnesota a factor?
I think Minnesota is a factor. We have a great piece in the matchup show. Airs tomorrow, 8:30 ESPN 2. And Darius Butler does a great piece on the Minnesota defense. So, we talk about the fact that the Vikings with Sam Darnold and that receiving core, they can score points. That defense is very, very good. They're third in the league in points allowed. So they're very good. Eagles are number one. Detroit's right up there. And then it's the Vikings. So, to me, you got to account for Minnesota, no question about it. But can they come into Philly in January and beat the Eagles?
They might not have to.
Yeah, I get it, but they might.
Yeah, well, right now it's an odd situation. You could be 15-2 and be a number 2 seed. I mean, that's unprecedented to win 15 games and not be able to be the 1 seed. But if Minnesota wins out, Philly wins out, I think Minnesota has the tiebreaker over them. And if Detroit wins out and Philly wins out, Detroit would get the tiebreaker over Philly. So you need a little help to get that 1 seed. But it would be an interesting game, Minnesota, because I think you're right. Their defense is probably better right now than Detroit's defense.
I think so, because the injuries have decimated Detroit. But nobody's better than this Eagles defense.
Well, you watched them up close against a good Pittsburgh defense. Were you, I don't want to say not amazed, but were you impressed by the way they were able to move the ball against Pittsburgh in person?
I was so impressed that it changed my view of the football team. I was so impressed that now I just think if you put it in the hands of the offensive line and Saquon Barkley, you can pretty much do anything you want.
Mm-hmm. Sal Pal, you take a look at this game. 4 weeks ago they played, all right,
Yep.
Philly and Washington. What's different about these two teams 4 weeks later?
I think for the Eagles, the defense has gotten better incrementally every single week, steadily. Communication is great. Command and control is great. Tackling is very good. People are double teaming Jalen Carter. That's allowing Nolan Smith, of all people, to be a standout pass rusher. Amazing.
Yeah. Well,
Josh Sweat getting his numbers up. I just think they're at all three levels. They challenge you, and that's different. I think for Washington, I don't know, Mike. They appear to be getting better in some very specific areas in the running game, like their outside zone read run game. But the number one rusher among quarterbacks since week 12 is Jaden Daniels. They have relied a lot on Jaden Daniels as a runner. So I think, it's maybe a little bit of fool's gold there offensively. If you account for Jaden Daniels as a runner, if you keep him in the pocket like the Eagles did last time, you can win the game.
Well, he's 3,000 yards passing, 500 yards rushing. Only three other rookies have done that. Only one other this year. That's Lamar Jackson. So you got a guy who's been playing, at a pretty high level this year. The Eagles did a good job of keeping him in check. Sal Paolantinio on a Sal Pal Friday. We know a lot of talk nationally all over has been Saquon Barkley, the record. Are they talking a lot about that in the locker room, in NovaCare, or is this 1 seed, Super Bowl or bust? Where does that record kind of resonate with this crew?
I hate to disappoint you, Mike, but it's not about Saquon Barkley. It just is not.
Hey, listen, I'm with you. I don't care if he gets this record or not. I want to see you couldn't live with yourself if he got hurt in this game. And we see what's going on with Detroit. You cannot worry about getting him this record.
No, I agree with you. Don't push it. If it comes naturally, fine. But definitely don't push it. Don't have him out there just to get the record. That's, of course, I think, completely clear by the way they're approaching it. This is a tough game against a very difficult opponent, and an opponent that knows you. Last 5 minutes of the game 4 weeks ago, it was a 2-point game, Mike. 2-point game in Philly.
Yep. They had the lead,
Things
and
have
then
changed.
Barkley,
Things have changed. Things have changed. They went through Barkley in that game. This time, they're going to go through the passing game, and you can throw on Washington. That's one, but you got to do it there. It's going to be cold. So the deep passing game will lack that kind of precision because it's cold. You're going to have to earn every yard. So that's one. So you can't turn the ball over. That's a number one key. No question about it. It always is. But in this game specifically, if you control the ball, you win the game because you have too much firepower and strength for Washington to beat you. If you turn the ball over twice, like you did against Pittsburgh, on the road against Washington, you'll lose the game. You will lose the game. So you've got to basically take care of the football. And the other thing is, the kicker's got to make his kicks. He left 7 points on the board on Thursday Night Football. 2 field goals and an extra point.
Yeah. Well, he hit 2 last week. That was good to see. It was 2 shorter ones, but I think that is one of the biggest under talked about things because that makes you coach the game differently. If you have a 52-yarder, are you more inclined to go for it than take the 52-yarder? Because we know these teams, Sal, are all analytics. And if your analytics say my guy's 0 for 7 from 50 yards or more, do you follow those analytics or do you ignore them?
Definitely follow them, 100%. Not even close. 0 for 7 beyond 50, I'm not going to let them go 0 for 8 and hurt my football team.
All right, well, this is the final Sal Pal Friday of the year. And, of course, it's great to have Sal a part of the show each and every Friday here. Some Mondays, some Thursdays, depending on the schedule. But generally, 5 o'clock, a Sal Pal Friday right here on the Sports Bash Live. My final show of the year is on Monday. So this is our final Sal Pal Friday of 2024. But we hope to have a deep playoff run.
Mike Gill, thank you. Thank you to your producer, Josh. Everybody on the Sports Bash, you guys do a great job. It's always great to be with you. And I know people are listening. People give me great feedback about your show and about my segments on your show. Thanks again to Johnny G and the Griner team at Berger Realty in Ocean City, New Jersey. And we'll talk to you next year, Michael.
Sal, appreciate it, man. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
You too, brother.
All right, there's Sal Paolantinio, everybody, here on the Sports Bash Live. It's a happy hour Friday. It's a Sal Pal Friday. We are moving along to the top of the hour tonight. We've got the college football playoffs tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Indiana takes on Notre Dame. Yes, you can listen to that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. Now, a couple thoughts on that game. All right, Josh? I know you're a big college football guy. A couple thoughts on the game tonight. These schools separated 200 miles. You don't think of them as big-time college football rivals, however. First college football game appearance between same-state opponents. How about that? I mean, I guess you think, did you get a Auburn, Alabama? I guess Auburn never made the playoffs.
No.
I'm trying to think. Is there any other two-state schools? No Michigan State.
I mean, Florida State, and Miami have been so bad for so long. Yeah.
Well, it's the first time Notre Dame has played a game at Notre Dame Stadium on a Friday. It's never happened.
Interesting.
Yep. Winner of this game faces Georgia in the quarterfinals in the Sugar Bowl. It's the 30th time these two schools have met, though. Notre Dame has dominated 23-5-1. The last time they played, 1991. How about that? Was that Vaughn Dunbar? Is he the running back?
That's a good one right there.
Prior to that, they met in 1991 and then 1958. Indiana has lost 20 of their last 21 meetings. They've lost 6 straight, with the lone win coming back in 1950. The Hoosiers have not won in South Bend since 1898. It's the first time they ever played.
I was going to guess never, but okay, 1898. Got it.
There you go. Indiana is 1-71 all time against AP top 5 opponents. So not a lot of numbers in Indiana's favor, obviously, in this game, as to be expected. They are coming off a season, Indiana, where they went 3-9. They are 11-1. It's a 10-win season for the first time ever in Indiana Hoosier program history. Can you imagine that? You're a fan of the Indiana Hoosiers. You went there. You're an alum. This is the first time they ever won 10 games.
I'm a fan of this rendition.
Of the
song.
Song?
Yeah.
It's not bad.
It's not
A
bad.
little upbeat.
Yeah, I like the upbeat.
Here we go. Notre Dame, Indiana, 9-3, both against the spread this year. Indiana covered the spread by an average of 14 points this season. It's the best mark in college football. Notre Dame was third best, though. So if you're looking at betting the game tonight, they are both pretty solid teams when it comes to the number.
My big distinction for the game tonight is, I forget the exact year, but apparently it's been either 20 or 25 years since Notre Dame shellacked both Army and Navy in the same season. Typically when they play both military academies in the same year, one game's close, the other game's a blowout, or vice versa. And this year they were both dominant wins for Notre Dame.
Well, we'll see what ends up happening. They lost the one game this year to Northern Illinois, so they can be knocked off by a lesser opponent. 11 wins for Indiana, most in school history. 10 wins by 14 or more points. That's the highest in college football. They scored 40 or more points in 8 straight games. And in its last game against Purdue, they scored 66 points. They gave up 67 total yards in the game. They're one of the best scoring teams in college football. Curtis Rourke is the touchdown. The quarterback threw 6 touchdowns last week against Purdue, or 2 weeks ago. That's the most in school history. 27 passing touchdowns this year. When you look at Notre Dame, you take a look at their running attack, and, of course, the quarterback. Love, the running back. Riley Leonard, the quarterback. Jeremiah Love, 12 rushing touchdowns this year. Rushing touchdown in 12 straight games. That's the biggest in Notre Dame history. You think about their history. He has scored a rushing touchdown in 12 straight games. You want to bet something tonight? How about a Jeremiah Love touchdown? He's got 14 rushing touchdowns this season, and that is tied by most by a quarterback in Notre Dame history.
Love is arguably the most important player in the game tonight, Mike, because if he can have a good game.
By the way, Riley Leonard, by the quarterback.
Riley Leonard is the quarterback.
Yeah. I'm saying if he scores a rushing touchdown tonight, he has 14. He will tide Brandon Wimbush in 2017, most rushing touchdowns in Notre Dame school history by a quarterback.
So back to Love, the running back. To me, he's the most important player in the game tonight because if he has a good game, that does 2 things. One, it means Notre Dame is controlling the clock and keeping Indiana off the field. And number 2, it means he's probably has scored at least 1 touchdown.
Well, that's tonight right here on 97.3 ESPN. If you're looking for the Sixer game tonight, that'll be on our sister station, Rock 104.1. When we come back, it is tonight's Big 3. 528 Sports Bass Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. The Dave Dombrowski has a media availability, which is happening right now. And in that media availability, he has said he looks at the Phillies starting outfield to be Max Kepler in left, Brandon Marsh in center, and Nick Castellanos in right field. So for those of you who are like, Max Kepler, who is this guy? What is his deal? What is his role? Dave Dombrowski said he thinks he's going to be the starting left fielder on this team.
I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous, Mike. I mean, their obsession with low batting average, left-handed power hitters is getting exhausting. It's exhausting.
Yeah, well, he hit 36 home runs in 2019.
Yeah, he also, like a 230 batting average that year?
Yeah, no, I mean, listen, I'm not a big fan of this move. I can't really get in. I can't get behind this, I can't get behind him being the everyday left fielder.
I can't get behind him being in the everyday anything.
Yeah.
Admit he's left-handed.
That's a big problem.
It's a huge problem.
Yep.
Well, what's not a big problem is the big three here on 97.3 ESPN. A couple of sound bites I have for you. I want to first start with this. I heard Hembo talk about this morning on Greeny on my drive in here on 97.3 ESPN. So, the conversation has been about Saquon Barkley, Mike, about, should he break the record? If he breaks the record, is there an asterisk? Well, Hembo says there should be no asterisks, and this is why.
Jim Brown held the record from 1958 through 63 in a 12-game season. In 1963, rushed for nearly 1,900 yards in a 14-game season. Then, in 1973, O.J. Simpson rushed for 2,003 yards, 143 a game, which is still the per-game record. But his record, of course, was broken in the aforementioned 1984 season from Eric Dickerson in a 16-game season. Saquon Barkley, in his first year in Philadelphia, in a pass-heavy NFL, which to me is most definitely a point worth making, it would most definitely not come with an asterisk.
Listen, number one, I don't think he's going to get it. Number two, there is no asterisks. I don't think there's officially any asterisks.
No.
You either break the record or you don't.
People just like to say it,
Yeah, I mean, I think there are media or, a contingent of fans who would push back that he did it in 17 games as opposed to getting it done in the 16. But I go back to, I don't know what the fans were like when Dickerson broke the record. It was 1984. I was, 6 years old at the time. So I don't really know what kind of pushback there was on Dickerson, if any at all. Where they're talking about, no, OJ's the rushing champion. It's his record. Because OJ was a popular figure in 1984.
Yeah, he was a popular figure. I know there was some pushback because I know that when I read the Walter Payton biography and I know when I watched the 130 for 30 that, basically it said that, because people tried to make it like Dickerson's record was less because of what Hembo said, that OJ still holds the record for rushing yards per game. So some people point to that as the reason why at that time. But I think as time has gone on, people have, welcomed the Dickerson record, similar to how in 1961 people were on Maris and Mantle in their home run race. Well, you're doing it in 162, not doing 154 with Babe Ruth. And I think over time we have permanently recognized the Maris record. So I think a lot of these, these curmudgeons, they kind of fade away and people start accepting records.
20 years down the line when you're playing seven. Now, here's the thing. 17 games is going to turn to 18 games, which eventually is going to go up to 20.
Sure.
So
we're on that trajectory.
Yeah, Mike Florio was on a podcast, and he said it's always a combination of 20. When he was a kid, he said it was 6 preseason, 14 regular season.
Right.
Then it went to 16 and 4, 20, and next up now it is 17 and 3, 20. He said the next thing is he was saying he would advise if he was the head of the Players Association, look, instead of slowly working our way, let's just jump to 20. We'll take a pay raise, jump us to 20, and let's stop doing this little, dog and pony show where we're working our way. Let's just go from 17 to 20 and end this thing.
If I'm the Players Association, my biggest gripe would not be the more games. My biggest gripe would be we need an extra bye week if I'm the Players. They got to start scheduling a second bye week somewhere in here, Mike, for these teams.
There was a year back when I was like high school or college where they had.
It was in the
bye
'90s. Yeah, they had 2 bye weeks.
Yeah.
I got to pull up the exact year.
It happened. I don't know when it was, but there was 2 bye weeks, and I think they would do that if they ended up going to 20 weeks. I think they would end up.
I say do it at 18.
Yeah. Well,
when you go to an 18-game schedule, the agreement should be you won 18 games, build in a second bye week.
I don't think anybody would balk at that.
I don't think so either, but I never understood why the players don't talk about that more. Because of the fact that, to me, there's a lot of players who complain about they need downtime, they need time to recover. It's like, well, there's a simple answer to it.
Well, listen, the hypocrisy of the NFL is great. They have a team playing 3 times in 11 days. They have them playing on a Sunday, a Saturday, and then a Wednesday.
Yep.
I mean, their whole reasoning was, well, the same distance from Sunday to Thursday is Saturday to Wednesday, and that's why we picked the teams. They're playing the same 2 teams that are playing on Saturday. The Steelers, Ravens, Texans, and Chiefs, they're also the same teams that are playing on Christmas Day.
Yeah, they just switched opponents.
Yep, they just flipped. So, look, I think you're going to see the league evolve, the schedule evolve, which would also, in turn, make people's thoughts on these records evolve.
Mike, for Big 3 item number 2, we played the audio from Mike Mayock earlier about how Jaden Daniel is a big concern in a game like this now that he's healthy. Well, Mayock on the Believe in Eagles podcast went into more detail about what makes Jaden Daniels so dangerous in a matchup like this for the Eagles on Sunday.
Against guys like Jaden Daniels, Lamar Jackson, guys that can win with their legs, your defense can play great for 4 to 5 seconds, cover everybody, rush the quarterback. But if Superman puts on his cape and slides through the defensive line, and now all of a sudden he can either take off or throw it, there are problems. And that's one of the ways that you can negate an overall talent advantage when you've got one superstar on the other team that can do special things.
This is the Eagles live this. Randall Cunningham, Donovan McNabb, where those were quarterbacks that didn't. Now, he has Terry McLaurin, who's a lot better than anybody other than T.O. that
1 year.
Yeah, for the 1 year that McNabb had. I mean, far better than anybody Randall had, Freddie Barnett, and no offense to Calvin Williams and Freddie Barnett, but I think Terry McLaurin's better than those guys. So, yeah, I mean, when you have a quarterback that can do multi-dimensional things, it cleans up and covers up some of the warts that your team has. And I think that's where Washington right now is limited. If Daniels isn't at his very, very best, they struggle a little bit.
By the way, Jaden Daniels, we should remind people, he was not healthy. He was still dealing with the banged-up ribs on Thursday Night Football. Well, in the last 3 games, now that he's gotten healthy since their bye week, Daniels has a 75% completion percentage, Mike. 7 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a quarterback rating of 105.9.
Hey, he was the favorite for Offensive Rookie of the Year. He still is. The gap closed a bunch because, I don't know. You can make an argument. Is Bo Nix?
I think last night hurt him a little bit.
Yes, but they're going to be a playoff team, and so is Washington. So I think you can say that both teams' big reason that they made this playoff push is because they have these 2 young quarterbacks that help. Look, I was critical of Bo Nix, and he's been better than I had given him credit for. But, yeah, I thought last night did hurt him.
I think Daniels, because he's done it for more of the season, whereas Nix has done it for stretches of the season, is probably going to be the biggest positive in Jaden Daniels' corner, in my opinion, because I think a lot of times these awards are narrative awards. I know that in today's world, because you can vote for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now for these AP awards, as Rob Motti has explained here on 97.3 ESPN, Mike, I think that even if Daniels doesn't get all the first-place votes, he'll get plenty of second-place votes, and that's probably going to push him over the top.
Yeah, I think he'll win it as well, as long as they don't – I mean, look, they have 3 weeks here. If they go 0-3 and Nix goes 3-0 –
well, what if Washington goes 0-3, but Daniels puts up, ridiculous numbers, You can go 0-3, but your quarterback have 15 passing touchdowns, let's say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to me, I don't think that the player of the year – whether it's rookie or regular, it's not as tied to MVP.
No, I'm trying to think. Right now, I think it's let me pull it up real quick. It is Jaden Daniels is the leader, and then I think Nix is number 2. Is there a third guy that can slip into the mix here? Offensive Rookie of the Year. You got Daniels. Oh, boy, he's minus 2,000. Nick is plus 900. Brock Bowers is the other one.
Brock Bowers is tight
If
end.
he was on a team that was half, I mean, he's the best tight end in the league right now.
He's playing like the best tight end in the league. It's a joke that I've had with a couple of buddies of mine. It's about like this is the worst year for tight ends in fantasy football.
Now here's a quirk in the odds. Okay, Jaden Daniels is minus 2,000. Bo Nix is plus 900. Brock Bowers is plus 1,000. Brian Thomas Jr. is plus 10,000.
The Jags receiver.
Michael Penix Jr. is next. Then Caleb Williams.
That's goofy.
Yeah. So if Michael Penix has 3 big games and leads them to the playoffs, does he have a shot? In 3 games? How do you even put him on the
I
field?
don't even see that happening. I mean, he's got to have the greatest 3-game stretch of all time for that to happen.
He's playing the Giants.
The Giants do have a pass rush, though. Brian Burns.
Yeah, I know. They're
Kevin Thibodeau.
You know.
They got some guys who can take advantage of a mediocre at best Falcons offensive line.
I was surprised. I haven't really looked at those odds. I'm surprised that it's minus 2,000 to plus 900.
A bag man must have showed up at the sports book and threw a bunch of money on Penix.
Maybe. To put him on the – I can't even believe he's on the board.
I was listening to Fortenbaugh when I was driving in this morning on Greeny, and he talked about how, there were a couple games this week with the college football playoffs, Mike, that there were a lot of bettors who were waiting for the number to change, and then suddenly a couple bagmen showed up in Vegas and got the lines to move suddenly on Thursday. So you always wonder about with these lines, did one random person come in, just drop a bunch of money, and the odds makers be like, that's our signal?
It happens like that sometimes, Some guy just walks in and, well, that's also where you get these fishy, betting scandals that have been documented in documentaries. What about the player who wasn't there a player like last year in the NBA who had like not played any games or something?
Yeah,
like,
Michael Porter's brother.
Yeah, there was something weird that happened.
Yeah, because Michael Porter's brother was basically feeding information to people of how much he knew he was or wasn't going to play. And they were making like the most weirdest prop bets, like over-under on rebounds and over-under on assists plus rebounds.
That's what it was, yeah.
And the odds, the books were like, these are the weirdest bets we've ever seen people win. We got to look into this.
Yeah.
I mean, who the heck is betting on Michael Porter Jr.'s brother?
I didn't even know who knew he was in the league.
That's the point. That's why I made it a red flag.
Yep. Crazy.
That's always something I never understood, Mike. If you're the nobody, why would you think that you can get away with not drawing attention to yourself? Like, you think because nobody knows who you are, then suddenly people bet on you? That people might not be like, that's a weird situation going on.
I mean, I don't know why anybody would think that they wouldn't draw attention to themselves. I guess they think the market is so big that no one's paying attention to you.
Maybe. I mean, maybe that's the working theory, that you think there's so many bets going on, why would they care about your bet kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Mike, for my final Big 3 bite, we've talked about it. Eagles, best team in the NFL, best team in the NFC. Mike Mayock in the Believe in Eagles podcast says the Eagles are the number 1 team in the NFC, but with a caveat.
If Philadelphia plays the way they did last week, to me, they're and given where Detroit is with all the injuries, Philadelphia is hands down the number 1 team in the NFC. Mm-hmm. Even with when Detroit gets healthy, I think they're similar in talent-wise.
If Detroit gets healthy, I think we all think that they're either slightly better or just flat out better than Philadelphia.
But he says if Philadelphia plays like they did against Pittsburgh, well, what was the key factor with Pittsburgh? They passed the ball.
Yeah, they were multifaceted on the offense.
So is passing the ball the key to Philadelphia winning the NFC, Mike?
I mean, just having the ability to do it. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to. It's just having the ability to do it.
The threat of it?
Yeah, have it in your back pocket that if somebody takes it away, the run game away from you, can you do something different? Hey, we're not going to let Saquon Barkley beat us this week. Okay, fine. I don't know if that's the best way to go about it, but if somebody decides that's the way we're going to go about it, we're going to say, no, Saquon Barkley is not beating us, then can you throw the ball? Sure, absolutely. I think that means you have to be able to do that, and I think they displayed, sure, yeah, we could do that if we need to. We just haven't had to do it all season long.
The other thing in the playoffs, Mike, is that, teams are going to be preparing for you even more aggressively than you are in the regular season. So I'm going to assume there's going to be some team, like if you face the Vikings, let's say, or whoever, where their DC is going to have some particular game plan to stop something with Philadelphia. So it's going to be more important than ever that they are multifaceted in the postseason.
Well, listen, you can't be a one-trick pony once you get to the postseason, and I've said this many times. To win the Super Bowl, to get there, to win it, you're going to have to win a game in an unconventional way. Even when the Eagles won the Super Bowl, they won the Super Bowl on a night where their defense wasn't great.
While their defense got them to the big game.
The 2 games before, Atlanta,
the goal
Minnesota,
line stand, yeah.
They had 2 games where their defense really was the better unit on the field. We forget because Foles was so great
in the
Super Bowl. He was not very good in the Atlanta game, and he was just okay in the Minnesota game. That game turned on its head when Patrick Robinson got the interception, returned it for a touchdown, and then that was really the difference maker there. So they won that year, the Atlanta game, the Minnesota game, and then the Super Bowl, almost 3 different ways. So yeah, if they have to play, by the way, 4 games to win this Super Bowl, that one they only needed 3 games. This one, you would have to win, if you're not the number 1 seed, you're going to have to win 4 games and potentially 4 separate ways to do it.
And by the way, I think one of those games, if you are going to get to the Super Bowl, it's going to be a rock fight game along the way. At some point,
and they can win the rock fight game.
What's up?
They can win the rock fight game.
Exactly. And I think you are going to see a game somewhere along this run where the offense looks like dew, just like pure smelly poo, and the defense is just going to be the rock star.
Ask A.J. Hawk and T.J. Watt about that.
I saw that online, yeah. My gosh.
Sports Bash Live.
I need a podcast to talk about that.
97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app. Tonight on 97.3 ESPN College Football Playoffs, they start at 7:30. The kickoff at 8. Tonight on Rock 104.1, Sixers and the Hornets. I have not seen a definitive yet on Joel Embiid. Apparently he is questionable for the game tonight, and that I have seen one report suggesting that he will, in fact, play in the game tonight with a mask on. So I'll keep my eye on that. We'll update you on that on the other side. I got the Bet365 plays of the weekend, the day, the night, you name it. They're next. Plus my Eagles picks and my game balls. They're next. All right, 5:51 time for the Bet365 play of the day. Plus, we'll give you the Eagles picks and the game balls for Eagles in Washington. Josh, how'd we do?
Yesterday, Mike, you went 2-0. You had the Chargers covering the 2.5, and you had Grizz Warriors under. Now, you didn't predict the blowout, but you predicted the under.
Yeah, they lost by 51.
51. But it still covered the under.
That's because Golden State couldn't score.
They couldn't hit a broadside of a barn. That John Morant block was pretty impressive, though.
Sunday slate, Commanders, Eagles. Here we go. Here's my Bet365 plays of the day. Are you ready? Coming off a 2-0 night, I feel pretty good here, by the way.
You should.
I like Notre Dame tonight.
All right.
Notre Dame.
Outright?
Well, they're 6.5. I think what's the spread in the game?
I think it's 6 or 6.5.
I don't remember. Let me double check again. I wrote everything else down except for that one. Figures, right?
Figures the one you lead off with. You were so busy covering everything else.
Notre Dame tonight is 7.
So it's up to 7 now.
So when I looked at it this morning, it was, I think, 6.5, but now it's 7.
There's
so
still
we'll go
some books at 6.5, though.
-7, Notre Dame tonight. Yeah, I think they win pretty handily tonight over India. I like that Indiana team, too. The coach is a West Virginia guy. He was the quarterback at West Virginia back in the day, but I think Notre Dame wins the game tonight, -7 there. I got Kansas City, Houston, under 42 tomorrow. Pittsburgh, Baltimore. I'm going with Pittsburgh +6.5 against Baltimore. And quite frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if they won the game outright. And I got the Lions -6.5 against the Bears. I think the Lions blow the Bears out. I think the Lions are like, really, hey, the whole week, the injuries, everybody talking about them, I think they take it out on the Bears. And they win that game by 6.5 or more. That's my Bet365 plays of the weekend. Eagles and the Commanders. I like Philadelphia in the game 31-18. I think they take care of business. I think they really impose their will against this team and kind of demoralize Washington. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the beginning of the end for Washington. They lose this game and maybe just kind of fall out of this thing. 31-18, Philadelphia wins. Saquon Barkley, you get the game ball. And I'm going Jalen Carter. Defense wins 31-18 for the Eagles. That is a look at this week's Eagles and Commanders game here on the Sports Bash, 97.3 ESPN. The Eagles pick today brought to you by Piccalilli Inn. Visit them on Facebook and on Piccalilli.com for their pick game specials. Be sure to pre-order and guarantee your spot in the Sunday lineup. Nobody beats the pick, Route 206 in Chemung. All right, that'll do it for me.
No Happy Hour Friday picks from you?
Oh, man, I did have the Happy Hour Friday pick. Thanks for reminding me. What do you got?
I got Shady Caramel from Gusto Brewing. It's a smoked caramel beer. And also, I got Pop Shove It, which is a hazy American IPA. Love them both down at Gusto.
All right, Holiday Joy. Erdita Beer is the brewing company. It's a hazy IPA. I gave it a 4 out of 5 on the Untapped app. Holiday Joy for the holiday season. Go find that. I had it over at Passion Vines the other night. That thing was very tasty. And by the way, Josh, thank you for the beer that you gave me here. I'm going to have that in about 14 seconds. That's it for me. I'm back on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.